Welcome to the Region Free Gamers Podcast, episode 20, and today we're going for 6 stars.
Stop! Police! This is LCPD!
Welcome back everyone to the Region Free Gamers Podcast, the podcast that is fluent in gaming. My name is Ozzy and I will be your host for this episode. If you like what you hear, make sure to leave a comment, subscribe to the podcast. You can also find us on any other podcast platform of your choice. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, and you can hit us up on Instagram where our colleague Arnie is always posting up cool things like polls and interacting with the community. So yeah, we definitely love to interact with the audience. So certainly, let us know. Today we're going to be talking about Grand Theft Auto 3, a game that we absolutely love and that we played back in the day to no end, and that our mothers were completely appalled that we were playing. If your mother was Hispanic, which I now realize that on this podcast is an all Hispanic podcast.
The first Hispanic podcast
yes,
ever.
The first Hispanic podcast ever. Which means that we probably have to introduce who we have here. So, as you can hear over Skype in Virginia, somewhere in the wilderness, we have the Puerto Rican Arnie.
Hey, I'm walking here.
I'm walking over here.
Is that New York enough?
Yeah, I guess it is New York enough. And we actually have 2 people now in New York. This is the second time that the Region Free Gamers podcast has at least two hosts in the same spot.
Has had someone in studio.
So,
we're
drum roll,
live
please.
From the Brooklyn studio.
From the Boogie Down Bronx, we have Anthony. Or as he goes on Instagram, Polybits.
Polybits. What's up, guys?
What's up, Anthony?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me, man.
So Anthony made the trek all the way from the Bronx, and I'm here in Brooklyn. So this is, I guess it's appropriate that we're doing an episode on Grand Theft Auto 3 because, New York is such a big part of that game that it's just, appropriate that we have 2 people from New York, even though I'm not originally from New York. But we had to get a genuine New Yorker in order to talk about this.
Well, this is
episode.
Region Free.
So it is Region Free.
This is Region Free as it gets.
Actually, because we don't have our dear friend Masa and we don't have Paul, it might be region locked, but because we're all in the U.S. But I think it's fine. I think we'll be fine. But yeah, this might be the first all Hispanic podcast,
of all time.
Germany.
Number one in Germany. Number 1 in Germany. Number 1 Hispanic hosted podcast on video games in Germany.
There we go. I
think we have that marker corner. I think
Arnie, look that up. I think we have that on lock.
I feel like these claims may come back to.
They may come back to haunt us. Oh yeah. Some like podcast somewhere out in the West Coast is gonna be like, hey guys, we've been doing this since the early days.
We're Hispanic.
I'm gonna need to see the receipts on that claim.
I actually, let's hit up Guinness, man. If we get in there first on Guinness, I think we'll be fine. Which actually, there is a Guinness on video games, so I don't know.
We could do the first all Hispanic speaking English podcast.
There it is.
We're getting very specific now.
Yeah, I think we break it down.
My confidence is growing little by little. I think that we could really comfortably say that that's a good claim.
See, all doubts are being sucked out like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, I mean, we should know a little bit more about you, man. Where do you hail from? We know New York, but
yeah, I live in New York, but that's it. I'm just
You're just known as a New Yorker now.
That's it. That's all I am.
That's all we need to know about you.
Nah, so I'm Puerto Rican. My parents my father. What's up, man? Oh yeah, that's right. We got 2 Puerto Ricans on there.
Yeah, we got 2 Puerto Ricans and a Cuban. Which islanders.
Practically Puerto Rican.
This is the first Caribbean Hispanic hosted.
This is it. That's speaking English.
Speaking English.
Number 1 in Germany.
Number 1 in Germany.
Australia. All right, guys. Well, that's been our podcast for today. Have a good one.
Yeah. I think that's all we have to do. That's it.
Drop the mics.
Just cut it, edit it.
So my father was born in Puerto Rico. My mother was born here, but she was first generation here in the U.S. So I'm the least Hispanic out of my parents in that generation.
It's all good because when you're a New Yorican, like you're just Hispanic by default.
Well, this is how Hispanic I am. My grandparents raised me.
Yeah?
That's how Hispanic I am.
That's very Hispanic.
That's very Hispanic. Yeah, very Puerto Rican to me.
Yeah.
So
Very, very.
I grew up speaking fluently in Spanish.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know most of my friends that even grew up here. I mean, their first language is Spanish. You know, even though they were born in the United States.
Yeah.
But that was in Miami. I mean, probably New York, maybe a little bit
New York,
different.
yeah, you get a little less Hispanicized. Don't
Yeah,
you? New York.
yeah. And you hail from the Bronx, like usually.
Yeah, I've always. It's funny. The Bronx just. I can't get away from
can't
it.
escape
I
from
can't
it, huh?
escape, man. I lived in Queens on 2 separate occasions.
Yeah.
And then I just went right back to the Bronx.
Yeah. What part of the Bronx?
I actually grew up in closer to the northern part of it, like by Greenwich.
By
No,
Greenwich.
I'm sorry, not by Connecticut, in Co-op City.
We're getting very inside baseball here on the New York front.
So I grew up, but now I live closer to like the Westchester side of it.
And I must imagine you're a Yankees fan because I see it on your hat. And
I'm
you're also
a huge Yankee fan. Yes.
See, this is where me and Anthony clash because I am a Red Sox fan.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because
He's obnoxious like that.
my parents on my grandparents on my mom's side grew up lived in Rhode Island for my entire life. So interestingly enough, my grandfather is a Yankees fan because he's Italian, so he grew up on the Italian side of New England. But I am a Red Sox fan.
I mean, I can understand if you grew up in Rhode Island. I could give you that.
We all have our flaws. You know?
Yeah, no one's perfect here. No
It's
one's perfect.
fine. So what's your background, man? I mean, I know you did some stand-up comedy in the past. So this is the first stand-up comedian, the first Hispanic podcast with a stand-up comedian.
English. Hispanic. We are breaking down barriers, people.
Number one
Listen.
among New Yorkers living in Germany.
No glass ceiling exists here. Yeah, man.
No, so I did stand-up comedy all over the city, man. My first stand-up comedy, so if you want to hear my first stand-up experience,
Yeah, go ahead.
it was I went into a open mic and just performed. Like never
That's
rehearsed
great,
anything,
dude.
nothing.
Yeah.
Just went in at the Comedy Cellar.
Oh, that's great.
So that was like my first intro into comedy.
The Comedy Cellar, for those of you that don't know, is one of the most famous
No, it's-
comedy clubs here in New York. It's
Yeah.
located in Greenwich Village.
And I didn't know
And,
this. I just kind of went in on a whim.
It's where
And
Jerry Seinfeld used to perform and everything. A bunch of the big,
I actually
big
met
comedians.
Chris Rock one time.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
he
wow.
went into he just went into, this was, I forgot, after one of his stand-up specials. It was like, this is probably like 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
So he was rehearsing.
That's
for
prime
his-
time Chris Rock, dude.
Yeah. That was right after, my favorite of his is Bigger and Blacker.
Yeah.
That's what really actually got me to want to do stand-up myself. Because everybody kept telling me, you should do stand-up. I'm like, what do you know? You don't know me.
You don't know me.
You don't know how I roll. So, yeah, that was my first experience. And then I took a break because I had my kids. And then I got back into it like a few years ago. And I was performing over here up in Midtown at Broadway Comedy Club.
Yeah.
So that was my normal spot. I was hosting a few days a week. I was doing really good, man.
Good, man. That's
But
pretty awesome.
I'm on a hiatus now just to raise my kids though.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, we're gonna look at you very, very badly because you're raising your kids.
I know it's not standard practice here in New York, but
You should be an absentee father. Honestly.
I gotta give
disguise.
you respect on that one, just because New York is amongst places to try to do stand-up comedy on the fly like that. New York is probably like the hardest one.
Dude, it takes some guts, man.
Yeah,
It-
people
it's-
in New York don't pull punches.
Well, it's funny because
They will boo you out, man.
oh yeah. It's funny because like there's no better high getting on stage and like killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having that crowd go crazy. And then there's no more low than like when your jokes didn't hit, the audience wasn't there for you, and he's just like, "Fuck you, people! You don't know how I do this. It's my livelihood.
What's that, a tomato? How the hell do you bring a tomato in here?
Bring this person in."
It's interesting because it's kind of it's the adrenaline of performing. There really is something to be said about that. I first felt it when I did my first trial because I'm an attorney that's learning all about ourselves nowadays, and I came off it, dude, and just holding the jury in sway, and having them in my palm and just kind of like having them enthralled. There was just such an adrenaline high that I thought, I really want to do this.
That's kind of It's the exact same thing. Just performing in front of people and like
it's
hitting on
nerve-wracking,
all cylinders.
but once you're rolling,
It's one of the best feelings, man.
Yeah.
So I do miss it, but like I at the same time I feel like I can always use that in other aspects.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very versatile skill, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, being funny is probably one of the number one skills you
Well,
could have.
that's what. Yeah, right. No, because it's subjective, right?
Yeah.
Like you get up there, I might be rehearsing a joke and thinking, "This is it." Yes. And if I deliver it the wrong way, I'm like, "Oh, that was it. I got nothing. I'm tanking. This is it. I'm never doing this again. I'm out of here."
Yeah, timing is so big in comedy, man. I mean, it's everything.
Yeah,
really.
man. It's tough because you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You're just up there. That's it.
It's one of the loneliest things you could do.
Yeah.
It's you against an entire crowd.
And everybody would tell me, like, man, that's crazy how you do this. And I'm just like, what? It's not a big deal. Like, this is what I do.
I used to perform in front of my grandma all the time. I mean, that was the toughest audience I ever had.
For real. You were there.
Yeah, I was. Hi, Anthony. Do not that funny.
Oh, my God. You channeled her right now. Benicio?
Anthony, and what made you create the Instagram? Polybits, because you're a great follow, man. I mean, you have some great content.
Oh,
you're
man,
always
thanks,
putting
man.
up pictures from around the city. You're taking pictures of Spider-Man trains and
Oh,
stuff
that was
like
one of my that talk about an adrenaline high. That was
Yeah.
one of them. Yeah. It was kind of weird. I was brought into this project with this other group of people that wanted to do like a YouTube channel or whatever.
Okay.
And so I came in and I had all these ideas. I was just like, oh, we could do this. Take care of it. They were basically going to launch a YouTube channel, and they had no idea what social media was, which I thought was a great sell.
Great
you know?
start.
So I kind of said, listen, why don't I do this? I'll create the Instagram. I'll create the Twitter. I'll create everything, Facebook page, everything. 2 weeks in, they were like, they dropped me out of it.
Oh shit!
Seriously?
I was the only one doing any work on this thing, right? And they dropped me out of it, and they said that they had their own vision.
Right? Come on.
Now I'm not gonna shout anybody out. I'll do it offline.
That is
Creative
the-
differences.
That is the
Yo.
that's the it's not you, it's me of like business
yeah.
talk.
Oh, it's crazy because I was like, well, I mean, I'm kind of helping you here. I'm not interfering. I'm actually helping you. So that happened. I was a little butthurt about it. I was a little annoyed about
A little
this.
peeved.
I was like,
Of course.
yo, man, I'm like helping this and that, whatever, man. So I just kind of kept the Instagram page going for myself.
And what's the name Polybits from the beginning?
No, it was something else.
Okay.
I'll tell you about that
We'll
later.
talk about that later. Offline. We don't sling mud here.
No,
on
we
the
don't
Region
sling mud
Free
here. We
Gamers.
just talk about slinging
We're
mud
a
offline.
positive family podcast with some cursing thrown in.
So the first, like, it was like, let's say at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he was like, yo, I'm going to go in a different direction, right? By 3:30, I was like, all right, I got a name, Polybits.
Awesome. Sounds like you are better off now. To be
No,
honest.
because I'm trying to find my way with this. Like it's still trying to discover what you want to do. So that's how I just kind of developed into like what I do now.
Yeah.
And now it's like, because you got to get that kind of following. You want to get to know people.
Yeah, and dude, you
now-
meet so many great people on the Instagram.
Oh, you do. You really do.
Yeah.
And now, I think there's more of my personality now. Before, it was kind of like, here's my games.
Yeah.
Hi. How you doing? Right now, it's like,
I'm like
guys, here's my games. Like, you get so into it now because you get that support.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get that confidence, honestly.
Yeah, so it's so much fun, though.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I love your Instagram, and it's really an honor to have you here on the
Thanks, man.
podcast.
It's an honor
real.
to be here, man. On the number one podcast,
Number one
spoken
podcast.
English, that's Hispanic, but number one in Germany, but with 2 Puerto Ricans. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. We're hitting it.
It's hard whenever we try to pitch the podcast. It's hard to get all those honorifics out. You don't want to forget any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
but
always gotta stay humble. Stay
that's
humble,
it,
but
though.
stay hungry.
That's it, though. Obviously, this is the episode that made us all famous. So this is it, guys. Enjoy this mediocrity for now, because tomorrow it's changing.
Listen, Anthony, tell me a little bit about your game experience. I mean, what was your first system? What was your first
okay.
console?
This takes me back. My first console was a ColecoVision.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
you're old.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty old. My hip says differently. Actually, my hip says I'm dead. I'm legally dead right now. Now,
ColecoVision. How was that experience?
Man, so my uncle had a ColecoVision, and we were at his place, and I didn't know what it was. I just walked by his bedroom, and I was like, what is that? And he's playing a game called Donkey Kong. And I was
On
like,
the ColecoVision.
whoa, that's crazy. This is amazing to me, right? So my parents, that Christmas, surprised me with my own ColecoVision. And it came with Donkey Kong, and man, this is taking it back. I know somebody's got to know this, but a game by Sega called Turbo.
Oh yeah.
And it was a racing game, and it came with the steering wheel and
Yeah.
everything.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and I was like 5 years old, so I could never actually hit the pedal. And like I couldn't reach the floor was slippery, the pedal would slide. You know, it wasn't like the engineering we have nowadays.
Well, he still can't reach the pedal.
I still can't now. It's terrible. Not with my, well, you know, one of my legs I can. So
yeah, turbo. I mean, that's really
what you got kids for now. They'll hit the pedal.
Exactly. Yo, what are you doing? Hit the brake. Come on. So what I used to do is I used to sit on I used to sit on the pedal.
Oh my god.
And then what I would have to like get up a little just to ease up and then sit back down on it.
We don't need brakes where we're going.
No. Marty, we gotta go back.
Fun fact, that is how people just drive in Puerto Rico, just regularly.
They just sit on the brakes?
Sometimes it feels that way. That in Miami.
So,
that's
but
pretty cool,
that was my first experience. It was, and it's one of those things when you're 5 years old, you never think, oh, let me hold on to this for the rest of my life.
No.
Yeah,
but that's all like trash.
Yeah, but ColecoVision was so cool because like it was like compatible with every other console that was out. Like,
really? I didn't realize
Atari. You could play Atari 2600 games on that thing. There was like an adapter that you would add
That's
onto
amazing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had like I never forget. I was like Mr. Do. Mr. Do was one of the
Mr.
games I used to play on that day.
And you have strong memories of the ColecoVision then, because I know that, for example, for me, I played the Atari 2600 and I just like have a vague memory of it, and it was just like, well, these are like stick figures basically, like,
right? Yeah. But like, yeah, ColecoVision was pretty much like, I mean, it was top of the line. It was next gen, right? I don't even know how many. It might have even been like 4 bits or.
I mean, what was the competition like? The Commodore 64 and the Atari 2600?
Maybe.
Well, the Intellivision and the
Intellivision, yeah.
But ColecoVision also had that computer. It was Atom.
Yeah, the Atom computer.
Yeah.
Right? My cousins had it. I didn't have it. But, like, yeah, there was that. So it was
They were the rich cousins.
They had that. They were that bougie money.
Bougie money.
Like, what's a computer? I don't even know what this is. I'm 5 years old, people.
And what system? Did you have the Nintendo after that? Or were you more of a Sega Master System guy?
No, so it was, I had the ColecoVision, and then
This will tell me a lot about whether you had a good childhood or not.
It was horrible, man. It's funny because I remember the first time I saw it in television. Like I went to some kid's house and he had it in television. I was like, "What the fuck is that? Like, why is there a knockoff ColecoVision in this kid's house?" I didn't know anything, you know. No, but like I had the ColecoVision, and then a few years, I wound up living with my grandparents, and then like at one point I convinced them to get me an NES. And then I got an NES.
Was this 86, 87 maybe?
No, it was even later than that because NES came in 85, right? So it's probably, we're talking like, I probably got like a few years later, like 88.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a few years later.
Well, by that point you had already a good amount of games, that had come out, like Castlevania.
Oh yeah,
Mega
there was no shortage of games at that point. And that's when like the consoles were like lasting. Well, not even now. They last for a while now. There was that window though. It was like a 5-year window for consoles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the NES was like probably like a good 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I think it was like until 93.
Yeah, actually, because the Super NES was out and they were still making.
They were still making games, and even Kirby's Adventure came out in 93, which was one of their last big games.
I love talking to people who have grown up with like these older consoles and have like really strong memories of like the Atari and the ColecoVision, because I'm always interested to know like when you finally got to play an NES and you saw like the jump in like visual fidelity and graphics and stuff like that. What was that like?
So here's what happened, right? I went to live with my grandparents. My uncle, another uncle. All my uncles actually put me onto gaming, apparently. I'm just realizing
I had 20 uncles, and each one of them had a different system.
All 20 uncles of mine. Some people got molester uncles. I had video game uncles, This is getting edited, right?
We're keeping all of this.
So,
this is an M-rated podcast.
Number one
M-rated
podcast. So then, my uncle though, he had a Sega Master System, and I would go over to his place, and I was playing Safari Hunt, Choplifter,
Outrun?
Hang On. He didn't have Outrun. He had
but Hang On was cool back in the day, man.
The sound, I can never forget that. Like that sound, you can never get that out of your head.
And that soundtrack, dude. I mean, I don't know how it sounded for the Sega Master System.
Sega Master System was the best 8-bit system. I mean, it really was.
Oh man!
No,
I
think
we're known for controversial statements here. Arnie usually makes them, so you're taking his spot.
Well,
here.
graphically, it was better. Sound was better.
Do you think it was graphically better?
I think so. Yeah. I
think it might be subjective, but yeah. I mean, but the thing is, the Master System actually had a very similar chip actually to the Atari actually. But actually, they were refining it over time because you had the Mark 1, the Mark 2, and the Mark 3.
True. Yeah.
The Mark 3 was actually the one that we call the Master System here.
The one I just remember just the colors on it being a little bit more vibrant.
Yeah.
I remember
the colors were different. They were more saturated.
Yeah, there was just a little bit more, but I just remember looking at that and like wow, this is a little bit sharper.
Did you play Shinobi?
Oh yeah. Well, there was
every kid wants to be a ninja and race motorcycles.
Yo, exactly. Yeah. Like there was nothing like playing those Sega games because they were it was arcade games. They were just poor. They said the same thing with the Genesis. Like you couldn't beat this. You know, it was amazing.
Now, do you remember going to arcades back in the day over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did they have like games like Outrun or Hang On?
Oh yeah. Like yeah, you had that.
You could get on the motorcycle.
You're sitting on the motorcycle, man, shifting back and forth.
There's nothing like that. Thank you, Yu Suzuki, for all the memories.
Oh man, those are the days, man. But like, yeah, my uncle had the Sega Master System, but I clearly I wound up getting an NES because I guess the Sega Master System wasn't really doing too well here in the U.S.
No.
And all my friends had NES.
It only blew up in Brazil.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Which is
in Brazil, they actually, that's their system. It won there.
Crazy, because this is other things I've been finding out since I got on Instagram. So over the past year or so, I'm like, wait a minute. What? That game came out?
They're still making Master Systems in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're still selling them.
It's crazy, man. Crazy. So long live the Master System, man.
Long live,
But, so I wound up getting the NES, and then, like, yeah, to your point, Arnie, though, like, the first time I put in Mario, the first time I saw Mario being played or Zelda, I was like, yo.
Yeah.
Like, you can see their eyes?
Yeah.
These characters? This is the detail that I've never seen before. This is so realistic.
Yeah. That was a great time because you had such leaps in technology in just a few years.
You did, and you had developers, like, being just super creative.
Very innovative because the rules weren't set.
Yeah.
And so everyone was just throwing things at the wall to see what stuck.
Yeah.
That's
the thing is like discovering all these new genres and like doing all that because I started off on the Super Nintendo and going from that to like the N64 and the PlayStation, it was a jump definitely, but from sprites to polygonal stuff, it wasn't. Like, I wasn't as blown away. Like, the fact that it was in 3D was amazing, but I was like, this doesn't look great.
But it looked worse. That's the thing.
Exactly.
I mean, it was in 3D, but the graphics were blocky, and so they were less defined than what you had on the sprite-based Super NES.
Yeah. So now that we're like in the PlayStation 4 sort of 4K era, I feel like now I'm getting that experience where I'm like, holy shit, like, this looks amazing.
Yeah, like this is going to age well over time.
Yeah. I mean, I think, for example, like the PS2 was where we started seeing that transition because PS1 was pretty rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the PS2 was where we started seeing a transition in games that they could foreseeably age well in the future.
Yeah.
Where you had games that artistically they kind of matched up with the concept art. That you started seeing the design and the vision kind of carrying through faithfully.
Well, remember when cutscenes were separate from gameplay footage?
Oh yeah. And you would die to like see a cutscene. Like I remember in Tekken, that's all I wanted. I wanted to see like the ending movies.
And now the cutscenes are the actual.
Yeah, they're the
graphics.
actual game. But I remember the first few games that try to do that. The cutscenes with the in-engine, and I was like, I hate this. Well, give me some.
It took you out. It took you out of the experience.
Yeah, give me some pre-rendered cutscenes because you lived for that.
Yeah.
For the full motion video cutscenes from back in the PS1 era.
Yes.
That was what Final Fantasy like really hooked me with. Like even like Final Fantasy.
Well, you and everyone else pretty much.
It was like whenever the cutscene would play, I was like, this is a completely different game now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The cutscenes were such a big part of Final Fantasy VII because I don't think the death of Aerith, spoilers,
spoiler alert,
would have worked as well if it wasn't a cutscene, if it wasn't a pre-rendered cutscene.
Yeah.
And it made the game cinematic.
I think I've always said that PS1 era, it's hard to go back and play those games.
Yeah.
Like, they're just rough.
It is, and I think that's one of the reasons why the PS1 Classic is going to have like mixed reception. It's just people are going to be like, I have some nostalgia for this.
I don't think Jumping Flash is going to be that.
No, I don't think it's going to convert
system
anyone.
seller right
It's
now.
probably going to give some seizures to people, actually. Some,
I might be one of them now.
You may be one of them.
Well, that's the thing is that they didn't look good back then. Like, they looked all right. But they also don't upscale well. Like, having it in HDMI doesn't make it any more appealing.
No, any sharper. Oh man, we're really alienating a few people here, probably. Anthony, let's take it back to you, man. I mean, just to get a little bit of an impression of what your game experience is like. What are some of your favorite video games and genres?
So went from NES. I would say, I mean, you can't. If I was gonna go by system, I would say on the NES it was Ninja Gaiden, and Super Mario Brothers 3. Like, if you had to put me on an island with an NES, give me those two games.
Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World? This is for the winning.
I gotta go Super Mario Brothers 3, only because it was just that just changed it.
I'm with you.
That was the pivot point. You know, because
there are people that say Super Mario World, but they're wrong.
Nah, I think it was Super Mario Bros. 3 because everything that you see in Super Mario World, you saw the beginning.
Yeah,
of
it was an evolution of that, but not necessarily a revolution like Super Mario Brothers.
Exactly. 3. Yeah. Now Super Mario World is an amazing game. I love that game. But if I had to pick one,
it would have to be Super Mario Brothers 3. I mean, it's an amazing game, and we always look forward to talking about this debate.
Oh man,
whether you pick one or the other.
And Ninja Gaiden was like we were just talking about. That was that was the first game I ever played that had cutscenes.
Did you ever beat it?
Nah, man.
No?
Nah. I gave up. Because, back then you didn't have... that's it. When you died, you died.
For those of you listening, when I asked Anthony that, he just gave me a look. Like, are you really asking me this right now?
No. I gave you a look like I'm ashamed. Like, sorry.
Are you going to expose me in front of the whole podcast?
I gave him that look like you tell a girl, like, I'm sorry, this never happens to me. It's the look I just gave him.
I finish every game.
I swear, I finish every game, but this has never happened before. But like those cutscenes in that game were
dude.
Like
it was cinematic.
Yeah, it was crazy. Tecmo was really killing it with the cinematics.
And I know exactly what you're talking about with the two ninjas jumping up and hitting the sword.
Oh, right? Like, I was like, whoa, this is going to be intense.
And it's ninjas. I mean, dude, in the 80s, ninjas were the rave.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles knew that this was the
They knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing. But yeah, if I was, that NES-wise, then when I had my Sega Genesis, I would say Thunder Force 3.
Oh, my God.
Thunder Force 3 was one of my favorites, man. And Herzog's Way.
Oh, yeah.
Herzog's Way was like one of those games that... Back then, it wasn't like you would go into a store and buy a game because you had all this background information from the internet or anything. Mm-hmm. You would just go buy a game based on the cover.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How's the cover look? Let me see the back of the box. Wow, that looks really good. All right, I'll pick this up.
Usually works unless the game you're picking up is Mobile Life Force. If you are, I was expecting a Charlie's Angels game.
Yo, there was times where you never knew what you were getting. It was crazy, man. We was so naive and we loved it.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Thunder Force 3 and Herzog's Way because those are two Technosoft games.
And
no one knows about them.
No,
and they were like one of the greatest Genesis developers.
And those are two games not even thinking they were Technosoft. They was just two games that I loved.
Yeah, they were just fantastic. Herzog's Way being one of the first real-time strategy games.
It was so good. And so what happened was me and my boy, we got the game. And he would always convince me to get these games. I don't know how he heard about these things. Maybe he had a boy that had a Game Pro at school.
We all had that friend.
Yeah, we had that one friend, the magazine guy. Like, look at this prick with his subscription. Screw this guy. Right?
I'm gonna go back to my Nintendo Power.
My boy Dave, he was like, "Yo, I heard good things about this game, whatever." Right? So I was like, we pick it up, we go back, we don't read the manual.
Of course not.
Right? Well, we just put the game in, and we don't know what the hell's going on. We were like, why is my Transformer dying 2 seconds after he moves? Like, what do we... And we just kept doing this, like, blowing up. Like, what do we do?
That's what you do when you're a kid. You just keep repeating it and you keep dying.
We figured it out. And then we were like, whoa, this is amazing. Launching ships and, like, tanks to everybody, man.
All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to take a quick break since this introduction has gone.
This is only an introduction. Oh, my God.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back, so stay tuned.
All right.
All right, guys, we're back, and number one podcast in Germany.
Spanish spoken,
English, Puerto Rican, Cuban. And we're ready to talk Grand Theft Auto. And it's going to be a really fun ride because we all, I think, played this to no end. And none of us probably beat it.
Oh, no.
You know, we don't even remember if there was a story in Grand Theft Auto.
It's
really hard to remember that because all you remember is just grabbing a machine gun and going on a rampage.
I was going over notes and it was like, you know, names were popping up for characters. I was like, who's this?
Yeah.
I don't remember this stuff.
I didn't even know the main character's name. I was like, oh shit, his name is Claude? Like, what?
I said the same thing. I was like,
I am the resident lore expert here on Grand Theft Auto. Cool. So Claude was actually the character from GTA 2 and his last name is Speed.
Oh.
So
are you fucking serious?
I'm that serious. Oh
my god.
He was actually in San Andreas, actually. I don't know if you remember.
Fascinating, because Rockstar never like connects games together, really, for the most part.
Well, that trilogy, the GTA 3 Vice City San Andreas trilogy, actually has a lot of characters that pop in and out of the games, actually.
But San Andreas had the same character from one to the other. It's
they don't. They don't
same
at
universe,
all. Yeah,
I
mean, dude, I wish like Tommy Vercetti would come back, you know, at some point, but he never came back.
I don't think that guy is, right?
Well,
Arnie?
You know, he's Ray Liotta. You know, so Ray Liotta's probably like, oh, stupid video games.
That's also
that was just a paycheck for me. Anyways, let's get back into it. What is your experience with the Grand Theft Auto series, Anthony?
All right, so the fast. A lot of people don't realize this, but Grand Theft Auto 3 was actually the third game in the series.
It might as well be the first, dude.
I don't think people realize that there was other games.
I actually don't think, like, some people may be like, oh shit, really?
Yeah, it's funny because so I'm trying to remember if I had to have heard about Grand Theft Auto on the PS1.
Yeah.
But just never got it, right? I have like I gotta show it to you later. I bought the pack that came with the London edition, the London expansion. So I got that much later on.
Well, that was like 2002.
Well, because I was looking at it yesterday, and on the back of the insert, it says, you know, it had the Vice City ad. So I'm like, so that's how much later I wound up getting the first two.
Because they released that after Grand Theft Auto 3 blew up.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, actually, we have all these games that you're not going to like at all, but we're going to sell it to you as part of the Grand Theft Auto
Exactly.
series.
So then So Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, and you had made a point that it was like, there was no fanfare about it. There was no hype about it. There was nothing.
No. It was very much an under the radar game.
Yeah.
I mean, that year's game, I mean, let's be fair. 2001 was a fantastic year for video games. I think it's probably my favorite year of video games. It's up there with that and 1998. But 2001, I mean, you already had Final Fantasy X released that year, Metal Gear Solid 2, Silent Hill 2, Devil May Cry. It was just a fantastic year for video games. Jak and Daxter. It was really when the PS2 kind of came in. And there was this small game that people had heard about or the like, but they really didn't know what they were doing.
It's crazy because this game really, that's it. That put the PS2. That's it. Like
I think that was the death knell of the Dreamcast and any other competitor.
Yeah, I mean, like even when you think of Grand Theft Auto, you think of it as a PlayStation game.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Like, even when it came out on the Xbox,
it did. Yeah, and I actually wound up getting that pack once,
which was good. I mean, it was a good pack because they actually improved the graphics. You know, they put in new things.
But you always considered that it's a PlayStation game.
Yeah.
And so the game came out, and I went to my friend's house, and he was just kind of like, "Yo, my brother just picked up this game. Check this out." And I'm like, "What is this?"
Oh, it's a weird cover.
What Grand Theft Auto?
This looks cheap. This is like a generic budget title.
Right? Like, I was like, is this like Driver on the PS1? You know, like
that's exactly what everyone thought about.
Yeah, is this kind of, is that what it is? And then I'm like, wait, you can walk around?
Oh, that's
pretty. You get out your car?
That's pretty cool.
You walk around? Oh, that's cool. I'm like, wait, what do you just kill that person?
Whoa! Stop beating him! Yo,
I swear there was no missions being played that day, right? It was all about how far.
The moment you realized you could beat someone to death with a bat, that was the moment you were like.
I mean, that's when I knew, like, this is life.
This is what I need to do with my life. I need to.
Yeah.
Actually, Anthony's a hitman.
Well, you know, I don't talk about these things.
Well, he talks about killing the crowd, you know.
I killed them. They're dead. No, but like, I remember going to his house and like, there was no mission. It was just kind of like, how far could I get with 5 stars on me as it was chasing me?
And it's like, you would pass the controller. It was almost like a multiplayer
Yeah.
game because you would pass the controller. It's like, let me see how far you can get.
Yeah,
You know,
and-
it's like, yeah, I made it 6 minutes in, you know, and I got the tanks and the army, you know.
But it was amazing because it was like, it was this world, like this whole this world is you're just part of this world. Everybody's driving, everybody's walking down the street in this game, and it was nothing I'd never seen anything like that.
It felt like a living world.
Yeah,
It really
and-
felt like it was organic, like people had their own lives.
Yeah, and the things you did would affect things that were happening in the game.
Yeah.
So like,
people reacted to you.
yeah, like well, okay, so one day I come in and then my boy's sitting on his bed smoking a cigarette, looking like freaking Bradley Cooper, American Sniper type shit, you know? And he's just sitting there, just on a rooftop with a cigarette, sniping people as they're driving by, right? And he's using the scope, and you see him zooming in on this person,
Yeah.
and you just see headshots. And it's like, I was like, what? And then, but you see everybody reacting to this
Yeah.
moment.
And
Other
you're
people running
far.
out, running, cars, you know, everybody's going crazy, this and that. And I'm just like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is amazing, man.
To me, it was almost, it really did feel like the moment where you had to jump from 2D to 3D. It's like in
Yeah.
gameplay.
Yeah,
Like you
exactly.
went from linear to like, you can do anything. You know,
Crazy.
you can choose how to play the game. You can choose whether you want to play the game,
Yeah.
whether you want to play missions, or whether you just want to be a taxi driver.
right?
Yeah.
Which I must admit, I did. I was a taxi driver for most of the time, living out my childhood cab fantasies in New York.
Who
And
doesn't
that's
have
when he
those?
decided to move to New York.
Well, not really, but
And then Uber blew up, and that was the end of that dream.
yeah. What about you, Arnie? What's your experience with the Grand Theft Auto series?
So for context, GTA 3 came out in 2001. So I was 9 years old because I was born in December, and so my mom, for some reason, didn't want to buy me the game. I was very upset.
For
but it
some
was-
reason, I mean, wow, she was such a terrible parent.
Yeah. It was much like Anthony, where I played it at friends' houses, and that's sort of how I got exposed to it. But it was just that, you know, when you see it for the first time, you're sort of like, what's going on? And then once you start sort of doing things, it really just evolves into its own game. It really was like Grand Theft Auto. I remember 3 specifically. I remember for 2 reasons. It was always like the single player game that I played the most with friends. Because even if you're just watching the game, it's like you're so into it. And 2, it was the game that really made me love cheat codes. Like, I didn't really use cheat codes in any other game, but every time I start Grand Theft Auto 3, it's like, I'm going to get the rocket launcher, I'm going to get the
rocket
tank,
launcher.
and I'm gonna go ham. Like,
Dude, you just brought me back because I was playing it last night and I was doing everything by the book and I was like, why am I not having fun? Like, I don't remember it like this. And I was like, oh, because I have only a handgun.
you gotta get full armor, full weapons, tank.
I gotta get full
like,
armor, weapons, tanks. And then I realized, how do you ever end up beating Grand Theft Auto 3? Because this shit's hard. And then I realized, oh, I had the rocket launcher.
Yeah. Wasn't there a cheat code that made vehicles fly too, or was that in Vice
Yes,
City?
it was. Yes, it was. I think it made them. It was.
Like-
it broke the game, but actually, I don't even know if that was in Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah.
There was some weird stuff.
But it was
anyway,
it was great.
hilarious.
Like, but that's the thing. That's the thing I really like about all the Grand Theft Auto games. I mean, with 5, you're seeing a little bit more of like what they're doing nowadays, which is like you want total freedom, but I also don't want like a mini map of like specific things like you should do this and this and this. Grand Theft Auto 3 was just like, here's a gun, like do whatever you want. And there's like nothing on the map, you just go wherever you want.
Yeah, it was a sandbox style of gameplay that, you know, you hadn't seen in any other games. Like for me, after that point, wherever I played a game that was linear, I was like, well, why can't I just like be Dante and just like go out and just have a cigarette or something and just decide not to hunt demons this day? You know? You wanted every game to have that kind of freedom. It really opened my eyes. I kind of equated to when The Matrix came out that just changed the game for action, and it was like everything before felt like it was old because you realize, oh man, I mean, this is really cool.
Bullet
like
time.
I want everything to be in bullet time.
Yeah.
Nowadays we realize that maybe not everything should be in bullet time.
not at all.
But but for the time as a kid, I really liked it. I guess I could talk about my experience. I actually knew about Grand Theft Auto before Grand Theft Auto 3. That's my hipster statement of the day. And I remember it because it was like that with Grand Theft Auto 3, that we were just talking amongst friends, and it was like, dude, you can kill people and you can run them over, and then like when you run them over, like the blood stays on your wheels. I was like, dude, this sounds awesome.
It's realism.
And then I play it, and it's like, oh, what is this? It's like, you're a little like stick person, and it's weird, and it's overhead. I don't know if I like this. But it was cool. It was like, I kind of treat it as a novelty almost. Like the Grand Theft Auto 1 and Grand Theft Auto 2, they were just like a novelty. Like it was cool. You could, do these things that you weren't able to do in these games. But it felt like a rudimentary game. It felt very much like it wasn't up to par with like the games that were coming out at the time.
It almost seemed like or like if you play it now, it almost seems like Rockstar released Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 just as a retro
testing
version of their
like a
game,
prototype basically.
Yeah, that's what it felt like now. That's what it feels like now,
Yeah, I mean, so I really didn't take it up, but when Grand Theft Auto 3 was about to be released, I was actually following it on the magazines. I used to subscribe to GamePro at the time, and there was very little fanfare for it. It was kind of like a half preview on video games, and it's like, well, here you go, Final Fantasy X. This is the one you're actually looking for. Or Metal Gear Solid 2. But I remember reading about it and thinking, this is like Grand Theft Auto 2, but actually 3D, and it's the evolution that this game needs in order for me to really like it. And I was really, really looking forward to it. So, I remember that Christmas, that was the game that I asked for. It was a great Christmas. It was my favorite Christmas of all time because I got that, and I got Devil May Cry. I got a Game Boy Advance. It was superb Christmas. I mean, my mom, actually, this is a true story, she actually had to sweep and clean houses for like a straight month in order to get us everything that Christmas.
Wow.
So, shout outs to all the moms out there.
On the Grand Theft Auto episode.
Yeah, on the Grand Theft Auto episode. Little did she know that she was giving me a game about beating up hookers.
Well, you didn't have to just beat them up either.
You didn't have to beat them up,
They
you could just
restore your energy.
They can restore your energy. So yeah, my experience with Grand Theft Auto was, I was hooked from the beginning, and Grand Theft Auto 3 I played to no end, honestly. So again, I mean, let me just make clear, we're only talking about Grand Theft Auto 3 today.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the earlier ones and the like, but we're not going to go past that, even though Vice City is probably a lot of people's favorite. It's my favorite, certainly.
Yep.
But we're not going to talk about this. So I guess we can talk a little bit about, where Grand Theft Auto hails from and who made them. It was originally made by DMA Design, and DMA Design is now known as Rockstar North. So they developed the series. They're based in Edinburgh, Scotland, and they were founded in 1984 as Acme Software. So originally in its early years, they developed a lot of computer games. They were, developing games for publishers Psygnosis. Psygnosis? I don't know how you pronounce that.
Psygnosis.
Yeah.
So we had 3 different pronunciations of that.
That's what you get when you have a Hispanic podcast.
I was going to say. I was just about to say.
That was, if you guys don't know, Psygnosis was what eventually became Sony Studio Liverpool. But back in the day, they used to publish a lot of games for the Amiga, for the Commodore 64 and the like. And so DMA Design actually developed a lot of games like Menace and Blood Money, which were like side-scrolling shooters, which is kind of hard to think about. Like, that's where they started,
Crazy.
Just with shmups back in the day. But I guess their big claim to fame before Grand Theft Auto was Lemmings, which is probably as far as you can get from Grand Theft Auto as possible. But I guess you can kill all these little lemmings.
There's death involved.
There's death involved.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a sandbox in a way. And, did you guys ever play the Lemmings series?
No, I never did.
I didn't play it as
I never played it.
Yeah, I never played as a kid, but I played a little bit later on. It's fun. It's just like, it's very slow, in my opinion. So I never was really into it. Very different from Grand Theft Auto, clearly.
Well, and they're still making games in the Lemmings series, but no longer. It's
know
no longer
who's making
Rockstar
them now.
North.
Yeah.
I don't even know who's making them. I think it's Ubisoft, most likely,
sounds like Ubisoft.
or something along those lines.
Like them.
But you may not have played Lemmings, Anthony, but I'm sure you played Unirally.
Unirally, so my boy had a Super NES,
Yeah.
and he had the game, and it was actually a pretty cool racing game.
Yeah,
I had a good time. It was so bizarre because it's just a unicycle, right? Yeah. I mean, that's all it is,
exactly.
But they have some pretty cool physics in it. And
Well, it used the Super FX chip.
I was
That
gonna say,
means
don't
so.
you like go upside down and do like all sorts of
Yeah.
crazy
yeah,
stuff?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that Super FX chip, man.
Yeah,
Mind blowing stuff.
Which, Star Fox and
Yep.
Yoshi's Island and the like were like the other games that use the Super
Oh man,
FX chip.
Super
and
NES
Doom,
has some
you know.
we're getting off track. I'm getting off track here. I'm talking about all these games with the chip. But
Yeah.
Univalley, it was my experience with it is real limited, but I remember just him having it, and it was cool. It was like a cool racing game. It was like bizarre, like
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
I mean, did you play it, Arnie?
Unirally, no. I've seen gameplay of it, and so that's how I know like what it looks like, and it looks really fun. But I've never had a chance to play it myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the backlog. Someday,
Yeah,
eventually,
one
I'll
day.
play it. It's probably not going to find its way into an SNES Classic too. But hey, DMA Design, Rockstar North, they developed that, and they developed the Lemmings series. So that was their claim to fame, and so they follow that up with, a game about simulating crime.
of course.
So
You combine all those things together.
yeah, I mean,
You have-
all of that kind of comes together.
You could see the formation.
You
of it.
could clearly see the DNA here.
I mean, if you guys didn't see it, then
Yeah, I
something
mean,
wrong
you
with
weren't looking hard enough.
I will say
yeah.
that like that's such an interesting concept, just at its core, just like a game about being a criminal. Because I feel like video games up to that point, kind of like movies, where like you want to be the hero, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like this is like the sort of thing where it's like, I guess you're technically the hero, like you're the least shitty person amongst shitty people, essentially. But that's really interesting. Do you guys remember? Because this always reminded me of. I remember there was like a computer game that we used to play in like high school. I can't remember what it's called, but it was like essentially what it was is you're a drug dealer, and it was sort of a economic thing where like you would
Yeah.
buy drugs and then sell them,
Mafia
and like the
Wars, was
market
it?
would fluctuate and stuff.
Was it Mafia Wars?
I think it might have been.
Yeah,
But, like,
it was
that-
like a Newgrounds game.
Yeah,
I think.
but that sort of
Yeah.
thing was always really, like, always piqued my interest, is, like, when it was a setting where it's not, like, the traditional sort of hero bad guy situation.
Yeah, you want to be like an anti-hero.
Yeah, you want to be Tony Montana.
Exactly.
And I think every kid wanted.
who doesn't?
I mean, everyone in Miami, where I grew up in public schools, and in Miami, they wanted to be Tony Montana. Yeah, so Grand Theft Auto 1, I think it started being developed around 1995, and it was supposed to be released originally in 1996, but that carried over into 1997. It was really delayed because a game of this scope probably runs into a lot of issues. It was produced by David Jones, and he was one of the original founders of DMA Design, and he eventually actually went on to create the Crackdown franchise,
Which is awesome.
and also
I love
a
those
failed game called All Points Bulletin (APB). I don't know if you guys heard about it. It was
yeah.
like a massively multiplayer crime game.
APB,
Yeah.
Yeah, but Crackdown, and he's actually working on Crackdown 3 now, which
Is he still really? 'Cause I haven't
if it's
heard
ever
anything about
released,
this
but the Crackdown series, I mean, the first Crackdown was super fun.
Oh, man.
And you could clearly see the lineage from the original Grand Theft Auto in that game. So he's actually, the father of Grand Theft Auto, so we could actually call him. But the first one was, as we said, top-down, 2D perspective. And you could essentially do a lot of the same things, that you did in the later games, like beat up people, steal cars, run away from the police, get 5 stars. There were radio stations, but it was all in 2D, so it felt a little bit more cartoony. It felt like the violence felt a lot more removed from what you were doing. It felt like it was just stick figures playing,
Which is
and
probably
like running
why
with like
no
little
one
toy
complained about
cars,
it.
basically
No one
like Hot
complained
Wheels.
about it like that.
Yeah,
because of
so
that.
I don't think that you had as much uproar because of that. I mean, it was, there was some criticism back in the day, but I don't think it was in the mainstream like you saw with Grand Theft Auto 3. But do you have, I mean, I think we talked about it. I mean, your recollection of Grand Theft Auto came only later, right?
And it's funny because I just revisited this last night. I popped the first 2 in just to kind of like,
Familiarize yourself and get some.
And I was like, for 2 seconds I was playing this. I was like, oh, this is hard. I can't look at this. I'm like, I can't play this long. But then I started trying to play it, and I'm like, the controls are just not what you would think
They're
were.
weird, yeah.
Yeah, controls are really weird because in the first game you would use the X button to move.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you would just, with the
And
direction.
it was essentially tank controls in 2D. Like, it's exactly
Yeah.
as unwieldy as that sounds.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then you would get in the car hitting the square button, I believe.
Yeah.
You would reverse with the triangle button.
Yeah.
And it was just like a bunch of different things going on there.
And
And
the
I was
thing
like,
is,
what?
since it's a top-down perspective, it's really hard to see where you're going.
That's the other thing too.
Because you can't see far into it. And so the game is very determined. Like, when you're in a car, it pulls out and it pulls in, depending upon, to give you a little bit more of a perspective. And for example, if you need to go to a mission, it wasn't like a mini-map. It just showed an arrow, and you had to follow the arrow.
And an arrow would... It would it wasn't that it would disappear, but it was just like it would blend in to a point so sometimes you wouldn't even see it. And I mean, yesterday I'm playing it and I didn't even know the whole time I'm driving in reverse.
Yeah,
I couldn't even tell what the front of the car was.
I
couldn't even tell. I was just driving in reverse. I'm like, why is this thing steering so weird?
No, and the worst part would be when you would be like under a bridge or something like that because you couldn't see your car.
See anything.
So, let's just say that it was an early prototype and. It did its job for the time being, but one of the interesting parts is that the first Grand Theft Auto actually included the 3 cities that eventually ended up being the trilogy of Grand Theft Auto PS2 games. So it included Liberty City, Vice City, and San Andreas. Yep. I've never seen San Andreas in the Grand Theft Auto 1, because I never got that far. I don't think I've ever seen Vice City.
But because Liberty City is New York, Vice City is Miami, and San Andreas is like South Central.
San Francisco, West Coast San Francisco and stuff like that. But, it's funny because Anthony was just here and he showed me the map. And literally, the map is just New York. Like, he just pulled it out and I, pointed out where we are.
We're right here. We're right there.
But eventually that formed the foundation for what would later be, the Grand Theft Auto PS2 game. So I guess, Arnie, what are your parting thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 1?
Obviously is not held up. I'm not sure that it was even up when it came out. But that being said, it obviously laid the groundwork for what would eventually become, Grand Theft Auto 3 and beyond. And the fact that they were doing all this on the PS1, to me, is still fairly impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a cool experiment. It's almost like a proof of concept, really, of what would eventually be.
Weren't there ports of at least the first one on Game Boy Color also?
You know what? I'm not sure.
There was a Grand Theft Auto on Game Boy Color, actually, but I don't remember. It was actually Grand Theft Auto 2.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think that you actually had the full freedom. But I would have to go back on that, and I don't want to say something erroneous because the number one podcast in Germany cannot say something
No, we
accurate.
can't just put... it's got to be facts. We got to put facts out there.
We got to have facts. I think that Grand Theft Auto 1 for the time, I think that it really broke new ground, but it broke a very niche ground. I don't think that it really reached the mainstream at all.
I'm curious as to, so that game, 1 and 2 came out. I'm curious as to that pitch meeting for Grand Theft Auto 3. Because you have 1 and 2, right? Which I guess we could all agree is a tough watch right now.
Yeah.
Right? Probably a tough watch back then, like Arnie said. And so when they came up with the idea for Grand Theft, I wonder how they even got just the green light on it. It's amazing.
I think they had a lot of freedom. I mean, I think, Rockstar
I feel like it must have sold enough that they were okay with doing
I think
a
it
third
did.
one.
I think it did because they came out with the first one. They came out with the London expansion, and then they came out with Grand Theft Auto 2. So I think it was fairly successful. It probably sold a couple of 100,000 copies, which for back in the day, that was pretty good. It was enough to get you a green light for a sequel.
And back then, developers were a little bit more. Like you see it now, everybody plays it safe.
Yeah,
they were just willing to just go outside the box.
Back then, they were just kind of whatever, let's just see if this works.
Yeah, so I think that there was a spirit of innovation back in the day where they were just all right, we're just doing it because we can.
I think it might also help that there doesn't need to be 35 people to model the arm hairs on.
No. I mean, you could have a team of 5 and you could finish a game like that. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be a big, massive game like Final Fantasy, but you could pretty much get by with a team of 5 back in the day. But Rockstar North eventually, and again, they weren't called Rockstar North back in the day, but we're just going to call them Rockstar North. They then formed a partnership with Nintendo, and they were going to publish Body Harvest, which I don't know if you guys ever played that game, but Body Harvest is basically GTA 3 before GTA 3. I think that's more of a GTA 3 than the actual Grand Theft Auto prequels.
Is that's the it was insects in that game?
You had insects, yes. You had insects, and you were on an alien environment, planets, but you could pick up you could get into cars, you could get inside the houses and everything. And actually, Nintendo, when they saw this, they were like, what the hell did we just fund? And they dropped it. They dropped it. It was eventually published by Midway because Nintendo was like, we're not doing this, which, whatever, they're lost. So I think, a lot of the DNA that would eventually make its way into Grand Theft Auto 3 was actually found in Body Harvest. And this other game called Space Station Silicon Valley, which was also released for the Nintendo 64. Those two were Nintendo 64 games. And, the idea of having complete freedom on the side of Body Harvest, it was that you could basically go anywhere, do anything, get into cars and the like. And on Space Station Silicon Valley was that you could get into all these different characters and you could have different play styles depending upon the characters. That really informed a lot of the genetic that eventually made its way into Grand Theft Auto 3. But for the time being, Grand Theft Auto 3 wasn't the next game. It was Grand Theft Auto 2, which was also being worked on concurrently with Body Harvest and Space Station Silicon Valley. And, Grand Theft Auto 2, it was essentially more of the same, but refined. I think, the graphics were a lot better, and it took place in this retro, futuristic environment, and it was a very weird game. I just remember looking at it back in the day, and it opened up with, this full motion video, like in New York, filmed in New York, and there's like people, doing a heist and stuff like that, and running away from the cops, and it looked very cool. But when you actually played the game, it was like, oh, that's not what I'm playing. I'm playing the stick figures and these cars that I don't really know if they're going backwards or forwards. But Grand Theft Auto 2, it was released in September 1999. I think the big change in Grand Theft Auto 2 is that it was published by Rockstar Games, and Rockstar Games was founded by Sam and Dan Houser, 1998. And from that point forward, Rockstar Games became synonymous with Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And Sam Houser produced Grand Theft Auto 2, and Dan Houser wrote Grand Theft Auto 2. So that's where you started seeing a lot of the tone that you would eventually know Grand Theft Auto for. Very satirical, very tongue-in-cheek, crime influence and kind of dark in the way that it presented crime, but in a very funny way. It was just like, you're not supposed to take this seriously, guys. Like, this is all for shits and giggles. And I think you started seeing a lot of that with the start of Grand Theft Auto 2. I think it was very incipient at the time. You really didn't see the full development of it until Grand Theft Auto 3. But you started seeing the voice of Grand Theft Auto, coming through in this episode. Did you play this at the time, Marty? I mean, because you were 8, so I'm pretty sure that's what you were doing.
My experience with GTA 1 and 2 is like Anthony's. It was after I played, I think, even Vice City or San Andreas at that point. So I didn't have experience with it at the time. Definitely, from what I've seen and have experienced, obviously a little more expanded upon than Grand Theft Auto 1. But I think the controls are just the death of those two games.
Yeah, they are. I remember playing this game, actually, late 2000. I had this Colombian friends, and they were like, yeah, man, I got Grand Theft Auto 2, you want to shoot up some people? Because that's what kids in middle school say.
That's what we do.
Yeah, and so he brought it over, and we were playing it on the PS1, because it also came out on the Dreamcast. And on the Dreamcast, it actually looked fairly good. And I remember just using the cheat codes in order to use the flamethrower. And that was just awesome. Like, that's when I first started, like, really appreciating Grand Theft Auto. Like, I didn't play it for more, than an hour, basically. I never did a mission, because the missions back in the day, like, on those games, you used to pick up a payphone, and that's where you
that was the best. It was like...
Yeah, they had
Charlie Brown.
Yeah, the Simlish, gibberish.
Excellent voiceover work.
Yeah. They saved a ton of voiceovers.
Grand Theft Auto, like, as a series, just has to be the game that people have played the most without accomplishing anything.
Anything. Yeah.
Just like life for me.
I don't doubt it. I played this game for 40 years and I still haven't done the missions.
I swear this never happens. I swear.
I'm doing the side missions. I'm side hustling. But I think Grand Theft Auto 2, I think that's where you started seeing them get a little bit more comfortable with, the concept of it. But, is it a good game? I don't think so. I probably wouldn't play it nowadays.
Yeah, if you play the game now, you would see a more closer connection with the controls that you would see in Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah.
It's a little smoother.
Yeah.
Than the first one. You get more into the basic controls of the triangle.
Yeah, you get more of a rhythm going.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's still very clunky.
Yeah, I mean,
in a way.
And I played this on a PS1, the little PS1 screen.
Yeah.
Which should be pretty sharp and easy to see.
Yeah,
and
but also it's you're on the top down and everything is small, so it's almost unplayable.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
No,
but it's like you said, it's good.
That's what we're gonna play after this, guys.
Yeah, we're definitely playing this, guys. It's definitely nostalgic wise, though. It's a cool, it's a cool history lesson.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, look, guys, if you have a Dreamcast laying around, if you have a PC, actually, I think these games were released for free. Both GTA 1 and GTA 2 were released for free by Rockstar, so they're freeware now. If you ever want to pick them up, you can actually do so pretty quickly, and they probably play right now on like a toaster, on like your smart fridge, basically.
That's true. Yeah.
So definitely pick them up. I mean, if nothing, just as an archaeological experience of where this game started and what we actually had to play back in the day in order to kill people. So just pick them up. But with that out of the way, let's take a break. And we'll come back with a full GTA 3 because we already took an hour and we haven't even talked about GTA 3.
Oh yeah, GTA 3, that's right.
Yeah, that's what we're actually talking about.
I knew there was a reason we were here.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get older, guys. You just have complete amnesia.
Who's this? Where am I?
I actually just kidnapped Anthony. Anyways, guys, we're going to take a break. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Don't turn that dial. Oh, snap, there is no dial. Alright guys, and we're back, and we're going to be talking finally about Grand Theft Auto 3, the game that broke ground and revolutionized the video game world and shocked the consciences of many parents and launched the career of Jack Thompson. So guys, were you aware of GTA 3 in 2001? What about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, it was more like I was made aware of it.
Yeah.
This definitely wasn't a day one purchase for me.
No.
I didn't really know anything about this game. But once I saw it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
My life is different now.
Well, like I said, I picked it up, Christmas 2001, and I had all these other games, like Devil May Cry and stuff, and literally all of them just sat there collecting dust. Because as soon as I started playing GTA 3, it was done. And the funny part for me was that I didn't have a memory card.
Oh, man.
And so, because I didn't have a memory card, I always had to replay, the first few missions, and then I would just insert the cheat code, and I could just play on the first island. And because of that, I played so much of that literally I picked it up yesterday, and I could basically find my way around without even having to look at the minimap. I just knew the first island perfectly. I memorized it. And that's something that nowadays with the later games, they're so big that it's impossible to do that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely impossible to do that. Because I remember with Vice City, I think that was the last time Vice City where I could actually know where I was going without looking at the minimap.
Yeah. San Andreas was gigantic.
Yeah, that's a moment where everything just absolutely blew up. But yeah, it's a game that once it found its way into the public consciousness, it just changed everything. All games kind of had to be, this wide and open, for you to explore. It was actually developed by about 23 people, which is almost insane nowadays to think that that's, what it took to build a game of this size. And it was produced by Leslie Benzies, who eventually ended up producing all the other subsequent GTA games. So the vision came from him a lot, and he's actually suing Rockstar now and Take-Two for unpaid royalties. It was written by Dan Houser, as you know, and the game was set in Liberty City, which was kind of like a facsimile of New York City. You had Portland, which was kind of like Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, which was Manhattan, and Shoreside Vale, which was kind of like northern New Jersey. If you are not from New York, you don't necessarily know this. You're just like vaguely New York type environment. And I think a big part of why the game worked was because it used the Renderware engine. And Renderware was this really popular game engine back in the day because it was cheap, it was easy to use. It was produced by Criterion Software, and yes, that Criterion Software, like the ones that did Burnout and that are no longer active because EA killed them. But yeah, Renderware was a game engine that allowed them to really stream assets pretty quickly and allowed them to really build this massive sprawling world without taxing the PS2 too much. But even then, they had a lot of difficulties fitting the entire game into this DVD because it was just so massive. I mean, you had 3.5 hours of radio, stations. It was just amazing. But it actually eventually ended up being released in October 22 of 2001. As we said, part of the great class of 2001. It was actually delayed by 3 weeks, unfortunately, because of the September 11 attacks. Like, the Rockstar offices were actually in downtown New York, so they were in the Soho area, so they were pretty affected by the September 11 attacks, and also a few of the missions, and it was just too soon. Yeah, and it just hit too close to home, so they just decided, we're gonna change a few things, and I think more than anything, they just needed the time to like process this.
Oh,
I think for a lot of people, it was just like, this is pretty traumatic. I just need time to like. Anthony, I mean, do you remember the time?
Yeah, no, I was down there. Like,
you were down there?
Yeah, I was not a few blocks away from the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
So I saw. I mean, I don't want to get into this, but like I saw that plane go over my building.
Oh wow. Man.
Yeah. So we were. Yeah.
So not even if you lived in New York. If you lived in New York, you really felt it. But I was in Miami, and even then, I was just like completely traumatized.
It was crazy. I mean, I could see why like there was no hype about the game because no one cared about anything at that point.
At that point, it was just like, this is done. Like we're just gonna put this on the back burner. So it was just delayed 3 weeks. They changed the colors of the cop cars to be from the blue cop cars, like the New York City, police department, into black, so that it would be less like the New York City Police Department, because there were so many first responders, that passed away, that they just didn't want you to like be shooting cops, when people were like, still grieving over their loved ones, So definitely it was a game that was very impacted by the September 11 attacks. But it did eventually come out, and like we said, it really didn't. It really didn't come out with a lot of fanfare. I mean, I remember GamePro reviewed it. It was like a half-page review, technically, and it was just like with a little. But they ranked it like 5.0, 5.0, 5.0. Everything was just like top marks across the board. And if you look at everything else, like EGM, also ranked it super high. Game Informer also ranked it super high. So it literally ended up being the media darling for that year, because I think. If you were a PC player, you had games similar to this. You had like, what was that game, Outcast or something along those lines. But you had, more of an open world like EverQuest. You had the massively multiplayer online games that gave you a lot of freedom. But for a console game, you really didn't have that, because console games were traditionally more linear. I mean, back in the day, at that time, platformers were really the big, genre for everyone. And after Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, that was the death of the platformer. I think at that point the platformer started dying.
Everybody started trying to
adopt that style.
Doing games.
Yeah, adopt that style. So, eventually came out. Like we said, I picked it up on release, and we all have knowledge of what we experienced. But the big change for Grand Theft Auto 3 was the move to 3D. That was really what turned it into from a novelty to a revolutionary work. And because it really brought with it a sense of veracity, a sense of this is real. Even though it's cartoony, I actually do feel like what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing, not just pressing a button and this stick figure kind of dies and sprays blood. It really did feel like what you were doing, and for better and for worse. For better because it really did give you that freedom, and for worse because, now parents were looking at this like, oh my god, you're shooting people's heads off.
Yeah, it's essentially a murder simulator or whatever.
Exactly, and what Leslie Benzies called it, he called it a crime simulator.
Yeah.
Which I think didn't do him any favors, honestly. But, it really was a big change. But, Ani, did you miss the overhead 2D view? I mean, did you even recall the 2D view from the earlier games?
No, I didn't know about it. And I think if I had known about it, I wouldn't have missed it, because this was so much more playable. I mean, just control wise, and just the way it was set up was so much better than the original 2D view. I think one of the things that I also wanted to say, when you were talking about the engine that they were using and how hard it was to put it onto a PS2 disc, I think one of the things that I always, like, it never crossed my mind when I was actually playing the game, but I know back in the day, I was like, there's no like loading in between, like when you're on the overworld map, there's no like loads between places. And
there's not.
And that was mind-blowing at the time, especially coming from like PlayStation 1, where like, everything you did was a load screen essentially. So having a game that's just so fluid, and like you said, like everybody's moving around and reacting to what you do was mind-blowing at the time. It was crazy.
Yeah, and you only had loading times when you cross from one island to the other, and even then it really wasn't a significant amount of loading time. So I think that year was revolutionary for kind of lack of loading in video games, because you also had Jak and Daxter. That was the first game with no loading whatsoever on consoles. And we started seeing what could be possible. And for 2000, when the PS2 came out in October of 2000, you were excited for it, but you kind of wondered, well, I already have a lot of the same graphics on the Dreamcast, so what's so revolutionary about this? And it wasn't until 2001 that you started seeing, that revolutionary leap, where it wasn't necessarily about graphics, but also about the fact that this, quality of life improvements of not loading all the time. Oh, man, so, I mean, I think that it really, the game engine and the way that they built this was so critical to your enjoyment, because if you had to load every, 2 minutes, it would have been a broken game, honestly. I don't think it would have worked. But I guess, Anthony, let me ask you, what made you realize that this game was special? What was the point where you thought, I have something good on my hands here. Like, I need to play this, and I need to keep playing this.
It was just that freedom that you had. Like I said before, like you hadn't played anything like that on a console before. Yeah. So being able to just do whatever you wanted to do, and of course, every time I played the game, I wanted to do the missions.
Yeah, but because you're used to, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go on the missions.
We're like sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me the next waypoint.
Yeah. No, let's go.
Yeah.
And, no, but I mean, there was like so many special moments in this game, and it was just being able to just get in the car and just drive wherever you wanted.
Yeah, and and I remember, I mean, the moment for me was where I realized that, you get into a car. I usually would drive the taxis because they usually were prevalent and they drove better than most of the other cars. And just put on the radio station, and I would just listen to Shatterbox, and I would just be driving around, not doing anything, not even like going on rampages, and just drive around, just listening to the radio. And I was like, I have a radio. I could actually listen to this in real life, but I'm choosing to spend my time inside a car, inside a virtual world, just listening to a fake radio station.
Those radio stations were one of the things that I was blown away about, because it was just, I mean, I'm sure I don't remember ever hearing the same conversations or the same,
Eventually it looped. It looped, of course.
Loop,
but whenever you would get into the car, you would just listen to it.
It would cut in the middle of something. Like if you got out the car and got back in, it was already like
there was a continuity.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there was a continuity. It would stop. It was keep going. So it gave the illusion of this world is continuing even with my absence.
Exactly. That's what I said before. It was just kind of like this world just existed.
Yeah.
You're just a part of it.
Yeah. And the thing is, the radio stations, I don't think that can be understated. I don't think there was any game that had done that before. No, I mean, besides Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2. Because it really helped with the world building. It made you feel like this is a real world with its own rules. It had its own fake commercials, like the Saibatsu monstrosity, Pets Overnight, which all of these are being shown on our commercial breaks.
Well, and the thing about the radio stations too is that like everybody had their favorite radio station. Like I remember like even when I wasn't playing, I was watching my friends play, and they'd get in a car, and I'd be like, change it to this radio station. No, I want to listen to this radio station. No. So, like, it was definitely a part of the experience that, like, we were super into. Like, once you play it long enough, you pick up your favorite songs or your favorite, like, talk show, your favorite DJs and stuff like that, and you sort of gear yourself towards that.
Yeah, and the thing is, it had, like, real DJs, you know?
Yeah,
and it really did feel like they were part of this world. And it wasn't like DJs that were just kind of talking about things without referencing the world. They actually referenced the world. Like, for example, in Keija, which is the reggae radio station, they talk about, oh, we're independent, man, none of that Donald Love stuff, you know, because all the other radio stations are owned by Donald Love, voiced by Kyle MacLachlan of Twin Peaks. So it really did feel like it had this internal consistency that supplemented the world building. You know, whereas a lot of games, not even just games, books, movies, everything, their world building comes through exposition. You know, it comes through someone speaking to you and telling you, this is how our world works. Grand Theft Auto didn't do that. You know, it was very indirect and natural. You know, because you picked up on how this world works by what the citizens will listen to. Like, someone in Liberty City, this is what they will listen to.
Yeah, so if you get into somebody else's car, they're listening to a completely different
Exactly. You know, so like, if you're in, like, the Mexican turf or whatever, or like, you know, like the Triads, they would have their own radio station. And again, it just presented this cohesive world. And, you know, it was slavish to that vision. Like, if you were in the Chinatown, you had the Triads. If you were, you know, in like a gang, you know, with the Hispanics and stuff like that, that's where you would find them. You know, it was all caricature and stereotypes in many ways, but it didn't bother me back in the day. It's like, you know, not all Hispanics say esse.
Well, but I would laugh about that stuff.
Yeah,
though, you know?
It was funny. Like, I cannot be offended by Grand Theft Auto because it was very much just tongue-in-cheek. If it was trying to be serious, I would probably be like, yeah, you guys are not, you know, doing a good job doing this.
Well, and it goes beyond that, right? Like, it's the radio stations, it's also the vehicles. Like, you'll find very specific vehicles, like, in different parts of the city around different people. So I think they tried to make it, like, very explicitly, like, this is so ridiculous. Like, not everybody, you know, drives a lowrider, like, and listens to the, like, Hispanic radio station.
Man, we're not presenting a very good image here of Hispanics,
I think we're,
honestly.
we just heard...
We're losing our audience with Hispanics, you know?
I think that, like, one of the things that I will say, like, in favor of Leslie, you know, he calls it a crime simulator, and I think if you actually play the game, like, I think when you've created this, you think of it as, like, you know, you're going to play the missions, and if you play the missions, it's sort of an homage to, like, you know, gangster movies.
Crime
and
gangster
sort of
movies,
that sort of vibe. But that's not what brought people to the game, right? It was the freedom to do everything else. So obviously, if you're just going around doing whatever you want, then it's going to seem a lot worse because it's not in any context. There's no context to killing all these people if you're just wandering around aimlessly shooting.
Yeah, it's a game, honestly, the reason why it was so special is because it's a game made of little moments. It's a game made of moments that you're like, holy shit, did you see that?
Yeah.
Like, if it was a game that had been released with something like Twitch back in the day, it would have been perfect because there were so many moments that you did and you were maybe playing by yourself and you were like, dude, you're not going to believe what just happened to me in Grand Theft Auto. Like, literally, I flew over like 3 cop cars and then grabbed the tank and, you know, and then shot down the helicopter. Those were the moments like that, you know, where you were just like, how long can I survive?
Yeah. I remember a moment, like, we had 5 stars, and, like, the military started showing up, and we were like, what the fuck? Like, there's tanks and shit. And then I remember us thinking, like, could we steal a tank? Like, it was a moment where, you know, in any other game...
like, your eyes were open, and you were like, oh my god, what if we have a tank?
This would be, like, an unbeatable, like, thing that's just designed to, like, kill you.
Yeah, like the final boss. Like you know, it's like, that's it.
So we were like,
playtime's over, go die, that's it.
And then we stole the tank, and we were like, holy shit. And then we were like, we were king.
And then when you stole the tank, you put the cannon to the back so you could go faster. Exactly. We all had those tools of the trade. But I do remember, you know, just partaking in these experiences that just formed a lot of moment-to-moment memories. Like, because the cars would not last long, and so you would try to pick a car that would be a little bit sturdier than others.
I always tried to make my car last as long as possible.
Yeah.
I tried to drive so carefully, park it.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen if you're going on a rampage and you have the military going after you.
It's the balance of life in this game.
It is. But I remember, when your car would catch on fire and you were like, okay, I gotta find another car, and I have like this helicopter shooting down.
I gotta get out of here soon.
And it's like you see your health start dwindling down, and you're like, I'm not long for this world.
When the cops would chase, they put the spikes down the road.
Oh yeah, and you have to drive with like your blown out tires, basically. Again, it was not something you saw before. Like, it was all the game mechanics and all the little incidental parts of the mechanics would alter the way that you experience it. And I don't think a game has done that as well and revolutionized that until, I think, Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. I think it was only until we saw Breath of the Wild and the way that the world interacted with you and the way that you could impact the world that we really saw an evolution of that I think it's going to start making its way into game design. Because Grand Theft Auto was very studious as to the mechanics it presented and how that affected your gameplay. And when you went from 1 star to 5 stars, it was an entirely different game.
Oh, yeah.
It was a completely entirely different game. And it was a thrill. It was a thrill. It was like an oh shit moment. There were so many moments like that.
And there was another thrill in like getting away also.
Yeah.
Going into the body shops and like changing the car up and doing all that
if
stuff.
If you could make it there, because dude, the cops got really aggressive.
Yeah.
They got really, really, badass, after a certain point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when I realized it. And then, beyond that, it was just the little details. Like the fact that if you got into the car too fast, the door would be left open and you would have to like stop accelerating in order for him to go and close the door. Like things like that. Or the fact that, like you said, Anthony, you could be far away and snipe people from way, way out in the distance, and people would just like run wild. People would just, the world reacted to you. And I don't know about you guys, but I actually like to play the game like following the rules once in a while. And
that's probably the biggest challenge of the game.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to follow all the rules. I'm going to stop at traffic lights, and just do everything the way it's supposed to be. And that lasted for maybe 2 minutes.
You can't help yourself.
You can't help yourself. And it just made you wonder, did these people live a life? And I remember I would get on top of the cars and see if they would go to like their home and stuff like that. And they didn't. They were just like going on a loop,
Boo, Rockstar. Come on, man.
Like, come on. But I think a big part of it, I remember when the game came out, I played it so much that I remember going on this big road trips and stuff like that, and I wasn't playing it because I was on a road trip, but I was thinking about playing it, and I would think about what kind of game could they make? Like, what if you could actually go into every building? What if you could actually meet people, and what if they actually led their lives? That's not something that's... It's not until very recently that we're starting to see that. That we're starting to, like something like Red Dead Redemption 2, where the world is just kind of completely hermetic and everyone kind of has an internal consistency. And it made me really wonder about what was possible with video games, because it was literally like tasting the forbidden fruit. After that, it was just like, what else could they do? So I also, it also gave you a lot of mini games. Even like not just with the sandbox. You could go on rampages. There were this little, skull-shaped things that they gave you like 2 minutes, and they gave you a gun, and you had to kill as many people. God, we're sounding so terrible right now.
But the side jobs was like some of the best stuff, man.
Yeah,
ambulances, right? Cop, firemen.
So you could be a cop. So don't tell them that they didn't do something right. They actually, you could be a law-abiding citizen.
You had the option,
and I loved playing as the cop. That was like my favorite mini game.
What are they called? The vigilante missions? I think so.
And those were super awesome.
Yeah, they were good. And I loved the taxi missions because I used to love Crazy Taxi, And that to me was like, why do I need to play Crazy Taxi now? I literally thought that. I was like, I don't need Crazy Taxi anymore. I could just play Grand Theft Auto. And it was just fun, and you could make money like that. So you didn't have to do that. Or like if you played, a firefighter, you could just put out fires and stuff like that. And so there were all these different little things that you could do with the game, so that you would never really get tired of it. I mean, at least I didn't. Did you ever get to a point, Anthony, where you were like, all right, I'm done with this. I don't need to play it. Or was it just like, the sequels came out and you were like, I can play the sequels?
Probably that, but I remember every time I'd have to stop playing the game is because I had to go somewhere. Like, that's really the only way you could get me to stop playing it. Once you start playing, it's just like, okay, I'm in for the night.
I'm down for this.
Yeah.
It was a perfect couch potato game.
Oh, forget it, yeah.
It was definitely, like I said, I probably put, 200 hours in the game, and, 10 of those hours were actually doing, missions. It was just a game that you'd pop in and you'd be like, maybe do a mission here and there, and then just, go explore, and they also had secrets and stuff that you could find around town. You could find body armor and different sort of power-ups and stuff.
It's crazy because a game like this now, there would have to be so many updates to it.
Yeah.
To add these things, but they added this stuff in from the beginning.
Yeah, no, and there would be a lot of bugs and stuff like that, and back in the day, that's it. If you shipped a game like that, that's it.
But the bugs would just became part of the
bugs
story.
A feature, basically.
It just made it more fun.
Yeah. Also, the game, something that can be understated is the fact that it had a day and night cycle.
Which
was big.
That was huge.
Yeah, it had its internal clock.
Yeah.
And some missions could only be done at a particular time. You had to come at a particular time. And I remember, I was, this is the year I also played through Shenmue. And so this was a big year for me, kind of realizing that games could have their own internal clocks and that they could have their own internal consistency. And so it helps so much in selling a believable world. That, for example, I remember that I used to prefer going on rampages at night because it just felt like that's what you do.
That was the time.
That's when you do rampages.
Yeah, I mean, still to this day, I mean. So it was a pretty big deal. The fact that you had a day-night cycle, I would love when it would rain. It kind of started my fascination with raining in games. I have this weird obsession with
I'm kind of the same way, weather effects in games. It's kind of cool,
it makes me feel so wistful and nostalgic, when I see raining games.
Stuff like that started for me.
Yeah, so I think it might have been Grand Theft Auto this time.
Yeah, stuff like that started for me, when I would play sports games back in the day, and the weather would come in like a Madden or something.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, when I started playing Grand Theft Auto, the rain, the effects, how, I don't know, it was something really cool about it, seeing this whole world now it's raining, and people are just, not in the streets now.
Yeah, or, it could be foggy. The PS2 kind of struggled a little bit with the graphics, so sometimes the graphics were very muddy, so you couldn't really tell what was going on at times. But you kind of just put up with that.
Yeah, it was never a deal breaker for anyone.
Yeah. Arnie, quick, tell me the story of Grand Theft Auto 3.
Oh my god. It involves a man named Claude. I learned that, and I'm assuming that he shoots people of different ethnicities and cultures for a reason.
Yes, he's an equal opportunity offender, basically.
He wants to be a fireman,
a
policeman, but he loves prostitutes.
Yes, he loves prostitutes.
He always wanted to be a police officer, but 2 days before retirement, he had to turn in his gun and badge.
His badge. Because he's getting too old for this shit.
Yeah.
Now, listen, guys, all jokes aside, typical, kind of gangster story. Guy gets betrayed. That's how that game starts. And he just has to rise to the ranks of, all this mafiosos. So he rises through the Italians, the Japanese, the Mexicans, whatever, Puerto Ricans, everyone, and so his job is basically to shoot people down, basically.
Yeah.
In all fairness, you didn't play the missions because of two things. One, the missions weren't great. The mission design was not great. It was just go from point A to point B. And two, the aiming was so bad. The aiming in this game, people forget how bad it was. Unless you play it nowadays and you're like, oh my god, this is really bad. Why am I aiming at the guy down the street when there's a person shooting me in the face?
The auto aim was not great.
It was a terrible auto aim. And so I think that was the reason why most people did not play this game, unless you had cheats, in which case you didn't have to aim. You just shot things. But, the story wasn't great. It was influenced by like Goodfellas and all these other movies that were popular back in the day. But I don't think most people even finish GTA. Did you finish it, Arnie?
I did not. And here's the thing that I was thinking about is that in the immediate sequels, like the PlayStation 2 sequels, I feel like the main characters were their own character. Like they had a lot more attitude. They were a lot more well defined. And so I think it works against this game's story, the fact that Claude is sort of a silent protagonist, and he doesn't really get, aside from, like, this is your motivation, he doesn't really get any development. But I think that makes when you're not in missions and when you're just doing your own thing, I think it makes it a little more immersive, at least for me, because it's like, this guy is a blank slate. Like, I can, it makes sense that he would be, like, a cop or drive a taxi or, go on a rampage. Whereas sometimes in, like, the later games, when I would do those side things, I'd be like, I don't think that Tommy Vercetti would be, like, delivering pizzas. You know what I mean?
That's potentially.
So I think there's like a back and forth. I think it didn't do the story any favors, but I think for the big part of the game that we all really enjoyed, I think it was a little bit better to have a sort of blank slate protagonist like Claude.
Yeah. Did you actually finish GTA 3, Anthony?
No? Nah, not even close. Every time I picked up the game, I really intended to.
Yeah, it was gonna happen.
And then once I'd start driving, and if I crashed, that would set me off. Like, I crashed my car, gotta kill everybody.
Gotta kill everyone. Oh, this guy caught me off. That's it. Your head's off.
There were some missions that were just like, am I thinking of the right one? Is this the one that had like an RC car mission that was like ridiculously hard to do?
There was one with an RC. Yes, there was one with an RC in GTA 3.
Yeah,
and if you touched it, it blew up.
That's right,
because it had a bomb.
And I was like, I must have tried that mission like 12 times, and I was like,
and then you gave up.
Yeah, I was like, fuck this.
Well, it's interesting because I originally didn't beat it, and it was only literally 5 years later that I beat it in 2006. I literally just put it up, and I was already in the last island, Shoreside Vale. And I was like, look, I might as well just beat this. And back in the day, I didn't have a backlog, or my backlog was very, very small. And I was like, if I have a game, I have to beat it. I was just obsessive compulsive about it. And so I decided, look, I've already beaten San Andreas. I might as well, just beat this. And so I did. And, like the ending is pretty funny. I mean, it's a game that if you can see like the ending and stuff like that, it's pretty cool. But it ultimately, it didn't matter. Ultimately, you only wanted to get to the point where all the islands were unlocked, and at that point, that's it. You're good. You don't really need to do anything else. So you don't really need to beat this. Let me ask you, what's your favorite radio station, Anthony?
My favorite radio station was, I love the hip hop station.
That was good. That was Game FM.
The Game, Game
FM.
I love that one
because it had Royce the 5'9". It had a bunch of like.
It was like on the low, like you didn't even know that they actually had like real dudes on.
Yeah, like real guys. Yeah, and it was kind of like an underground hip hop type thing.
I mean, the soundtrack just from that would have been
DJ
great.
Stretch Armstrong.
It was.
It's now in your world.
Yo, like the fact that they were able to get these dudes to do these tracks on this game, like, or just even voice their stuff on it, was crazy. And then Chatterbox is just always fun to just listen to.
Well, my favorite thing when they would announce a new Grand Theft Auto game, the thing that I was looking forward to the most is what are the radio stations and who are they going to bring on the radio stations. It was literally, that was my favorite thing, because the radio stations for me were they were the biggest part of Grand Theft Auto. Even in Vice City, they were the most important part, because Vice City was the one that introduced me to 80s music.
Yeah.
And that was the best.
Yeah, and so for me, the radio, and the thing with the radio in GTA 3, a lot of the songs were actually like in-house songs, like they made for the game itself, but there were a lot of songs that were actually licensed. So like, for example, Flashback FM was all like Scarface songs. And it was a really, really fun radio station.
It was good.
She's on fire. And it just like, it became, ingrained in your head. Like, you would stop playing the game and you'd be like, she's on fire. It's just like, what are you singing? It's like,
Ozzy's going to be singing this song for the rest of the day now.
For the rest of the day. I'll be on fire. What about you, Arnie? What was your favorite radio station?
Flashback FM was the jam.
Flashback was your jam.
Whenever 3 and Vice City I was always like, I want to hear like the retro, like sort of pop glam rock songs, like Broken Wings on Vice City soundtrack. That was my jam.
The one. But let me ask you, Arnie, Did you push it to the limit?
Every time. I walked along the razor's edge.
Walk along the road. Yeah, it was very much like Kenny Loggins type of like Top Gun, you know.
It was great.
Highway to the Danger Zone.
And it was like I was so happy that's the way it was, because like the radio stations is what you're going to be listening to most of the time, because most of the time you're going to be in a car. So Chatterbox was super fun. Flashback FM was super fun. There was nothing worse, because I remember we were talking about how the stations just keep going whether you're listening to them or not. There's nothing worse.
So you have to keep
like,
listening to them because you would miss things.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that was the thing, is like there's nothing worse than getting in somebody's car and tuning to your favorite station and your song is like halfway done.
Yeah, and you're like 01010101. Yeah. Okay, flashback. We're good. And then you would remember, you would eventually memorize like which station came after what station. Yeah. So Chatterbox came after Flashback and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were some radio stations that I would just not listen to. Like MSX was like drum and bass, and I was like, what the hell is this?
It didn't suit what I needed to hear for this particular mission.
But I loved Keija. Keija was so cool. Like the scientist, you know, it's if you want to shoot a man, you get yourself a gun. If you want some knowledge, you get yourself a scientist. Like, I was listening to that last night, and my girlfriend was like, what the fuck are you listening to? But, you know, for me, I think I'm very much like Anthony. I loved Game FM, you know, because I loved the songs that they played. But I also loved Double Clef FM, which was the classical radio station, you know, because it's nothing better than going on a rampage to Luciano Pavarotti. Like, it's just, you know...
That's even more psychotic.
It's even more psychotic. Yeah. I felt like, look, this is who I'm meant to be,
that's some like,
guys.
That's some like, what do you call
Hannibal
that? Silence of the Lambs kind of...
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah,
exactly.
Us Puerto Ricans, we're on the same path.
I was about to say that.
It's like, actually, Arnie, that's, you don't know what's behind that door.
Don't go in there.
Don't go in there. It literally has some skeletons. Yeah, but also Chatterbox, I mean, because the people that called into that radio station, it was hosted by Laszlo, and Laszlo, like, played it very straight, like, who the hell are you guys? You know, but they would be like, yeah, I'm naked right now, Laszlo, you can't do anything about it. You know? And it was just like, what are these weirdos? The one that I always remember, is the guy that likes squirrels. It's like, yep. Them squirrels is good eating, you know. A little bit chewy, but them's good eating, yeah.
I feel like that's Paul right now.
Yeah, well, actually, Paul couldn't join us because he was out trap hunting.
Squirrels, apparently.
He's out hunting squirrels, so you know, part of the Moose Mafia. So it was just like all these characters, or like there was this character that was like a kung fu master. It's like,
oh, it's so funny, man.
Don't taunt me, Laszlo. You know, I can kill you right now. Yeah, it was just so many characters, and I just found it so freaking fun, dude.
Yeah, that's what's amazing to me, because all that alone, which is that's not part of even the game.
Yeah.
No.
But they put all that stuff in there,
it's like, all incidental.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it became
like, it's all things that would be frivolous.
And it became such a big part of like the experience of playing Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't make a Grand Theft Auto game now and not have radio stations.
No. Like, it wouldn't be a Grand Theft Auto game.
People would be rampaging in the streets. They'd be like rioting. Like, what is this?
Rampaging in the street with a Walkman on their, on their headphones. The game also was, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but it was certainly a change, you know, in that it used a lot of celebrities as voice actors. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys knew it, but it used a lot of people from The Sopranos, you know, and stuff. So, like, Joey Pantoliano, you know, was, like, he played Luigi, who was one of the first guys that gave you missions and stuff. Yeah. Or Michael Rappaport played Joey, you know, and he was the one that also gave you missions after Luigi. Did you guys know about these guys back in the day? Did you guys know they were playing those characters?
I found out after the fact.
Yeah.
You know, after I'm playing the game. And, you know, like, you would play the game and you'd be like, man, that guy sounds familiar. Yeah. But then you didn't really think that they were actually using these guys for this game that you didn't even know that was coming out kind of thing. You know, it was like just a video game? Come on, you know?
But it made video games feel important for me. At least for me, I was like, holy shit, you know, they're actually getting like real voice actors, and these voice actors are putting, you know, their presence into it.
And that's another amazing thing about this game, is that like you had games before that used like celebrities like in some form, like Bruce Willis and
in Apocalypse.
You know, like you had
Did he actually even voice that?
I don't know if he voiced. I know it was his image. He had like that weird polygon looking face in the game, you know.
vaguely John McClane looking.
He looked like he looks now back then.
Yeah, essentially.
That's how he was old Bruce Willis early on.
We had old Bruce Willis 20 years ago.
Yeah, they aged him.
It was a premonition. Let's just put it that way.
But like, so you had that but to have a game that had several celebrity voices and like we're doing voiceover work for this video game.
Hey, listen, we had Dana Plato in Night Trap. Okay.
Oh, well, let's not forget that.
Let's not forget that.
Well,
right?
look what happened.
No, I thought it was super cool, and particularly because they were all guys. Like I love Joe Pantoliano.
Yeah.
I love him in The Matrix. I love him, on Bad Boys. And so his voice is impossible to not tell that that's Joe Pantoliano.
You know it's him.
So I thought that was something that. It made the game really cool, in a way.
Yeah.
Like cool in the sense that it's a cool game. Like it's a cool game to play. And I remember when Vice City came out, it was just like, all right, who do they have, for this? So they have, Ray Liotta, they have Burt Reynolds, all these other characters, and I just wanted to know who are they bringing in. And for San Andreas, they had Samuel L. Jackson and stuff. It was just great, So I expected this, and it's only until. Like Grand Theft Auto 4, they started doing away with that, where they were like, we're just going to hire professional voice actors and stuff like that, because they probably, like, most of their budget ended up going to
it's fine,
paying the celebrities.
Yeah, they were like, man, we couldn't add that part to this game now.
we couldn't, add, I don't know, pigeon shooting,
But see, I don't buy that, because if nothing else, Grand Theft Auto prints fucking money.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, they could probably, but they probably don't want to deal with like the prima donnas and stuff like that. It's like, hey, we're gonna bring in Bruce Willis, and Bruce Willis wants to play Bruce Willis. So that's probably a reason why. But hey, I guess that's a good spot to take a quick break.
Yeah.
So just stay tuned, and we'll be back.
I've tried everything, and I just couldn't keep those extra 200 pounds off. It started to affect my marriage.
She was too big for me, and I'll sleep with anything.
The Abdometrix, the Thiacizer, tummy stapling. I've had my mouth sewn up, my hands chopped off. You name it, I've tried it.
Yeah, except for exercising and eating right, Porky.
That's right, honey. Then I found the Dormatron. Using a new technology called biorhythmic subconscious gymnastics, the Dormatron exercises you while you sleep. Just strap in your arms and legs, put on the Dormatron headset, then wrap yourself in the special high-voltage electric blanket. Turn it on to 11 and burn those pounds away while you have a relaxing night's sleep. Now that I've lost 280 pounds, my husband's all mine again.
That's right, honey. No more escort services for me. Don't be fat a day longer than you have to. Remember, being fat can even ruin a romantic cruise. Call Dormatron now at 1-800-SLEEP-OFF-LARD or visit www.sleepofflard.com and sleep your way to a thinner, happier you.
All right, so we're back, guys, and we're about to wrap it up. So let's talk a little bit about controversy. Were you guys aware of the controversy at the time, Anthony?
Yeah. I mean, you started hearing about it on the news and stuff, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
I
like,
care less.
Guys, you guys don't get it.
Because people are gonna start blaming the video game for in the game you could get a hooker.
Yeah.
Right? So if your son is going out there in the real world getting himself a hooker,
I think you have bigger things here. Have bigger problems than, Grand Theft Auto 3.
I don't think it's the game that told him he could get himself a hooker.
It's interesting because it was talked about as if it was this new drug. It's like, at 8, listen, stay tuned for what kids are, doing nowadays. I think the fact that you could have sex with a hooker, pay her, then run her over and get her money was
that's
really
just real life. I
don't know if you haven't grown up in the Bronx, dude,
listen,
but that's like a Friday night for us.
I've seen my fair share of hookers, and they like to get run over by cars. I apologize to all hookers listening to this. I didn't really mean that. I was joking.
Number one podcast in Germany. Just want to throw that
we were just banned in Germany right now, Anthony.
We're number 2 now.
We were just banned in Germany just for saying that.
No, but it was. I mean, stuff like that was funny to me though.
Yeah.
Being able to get a hooker to get your energy up.
Yeah.
Come on.
That makes sense.
Listen,
yeah,
that makes sense.
He needs to clear his mind. He's on a mission.
It was so funny because the car starts going up and down.
Up and down. So that was actually something that my friend told me about.
Yeah.
And I said, no.
You gotta be kidding.
Nah.
It's almost like a cheat code, like Shenlong, in Street Fighter.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you can actually have sex with it. It's like, yeah, you're fucking with me.
There was so much word of mouth about Grand Theft Auto 3 that, it was almost like it reminded me of Street Fighter back in the arcades.
Yeah.
Because like no one knew the moves.
Yeah, you couldn't
You'd
do a
find
fireball
out
or whatever.
from
It's
people.
like, oh,
You'd find out from people, and
Yeah.
like there was allegedly never a manual for this stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, I found out later. Oh, there really was. What the hell? You know, that's how GTA was. Though, like you would somebody would find stuff out about the game, like that part, like where the car would actually be like rocking.
Oh,
and
yeah.
down. And I was like, no, you just can't. And then when I would try it, I was like, holy shit.
it actually works.
Wow. Okay.
But
This
see,
game is out of its mind.
Everybody's
have a
all
back?
up in arms about Grand Theft Auto having prostitutes, but when Nintendo did it in Zelda 2, that was a
Wait,
problem.
what?
You don't remember how Link would go into town and like go into this woman's house, and that's how he'd get all his energy back?
No.
You don't remember
Oh,
in Zelda
I
2?
didn't even know that. No.
No. I guess
That's
it's
so
because it's
funny.
the black sheep of the, you know, that's probably the reason why. You know?
Wow.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, but it was very much a word of mouth game. Like, for example, like getting the dodo. Like, the dodo was, you know, what everyone wanted. It's like you could actually fly. And how long can you fly in the dodo? The dodo was basically a plane, a biplane, basically, that had its wings clipped off. So you couldn't really fly very well. So one of the big things, you know, once you got pretty well into the game, was to go to the airport, which was on the last island, and try to get, you know, the airplane, which, by the way, I think if you went into it, you would actually get 5 stars automatically. So you had to rush in,
Oh, man.
get the plane, and then try to fly this plane that couldn't really fly. And some people became experts at it. I think, honestly, when you think about it, probably one of the reasons why is because they didn't want people flying around planes after September 11th.
Probably.
You know, because,
Yeah.
you know, people being people, they would probably, like... You know,
Yeah, they were gonna be real. Yeah,
they were gonna be dicks about it. But yeah, it was just like all this little word of mouth games. It really did feel like a playground game, where it's like
Yeah.
you could do this or you could do that, or like I made it to 6 stars or something like that. It's like, is there even a 6 stars? You know,
I didn't even know they had 6 stars.
Artie, did you? I mean, you were young, but you know, did you remember like your mom telling you can't play those games, you know, or something like that?
Definitely. But my experience with like Grand Theft Auto controversy was more like when San Andreas came out and the whole hot coffee thing, and like
Yeah, I
was
think
the
that's where
one
it
I
reached a
remember.
critical point. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, look, even now, I think back on it, and I played that game so much that I had kind of like the Tetris effect. Tetris effect is when you... Which I had it yesterday because I was playing Tetris Effect. Call for that. Where you stop playing Tetris and you can still see the falling blocks. And you can still kind of play it in your head. And I had that with Grand Theft Auto. And I remember at one point I was driving. And I was like, maybe I should run this red light. And I was like, alright, you've been playing too much Grand Theft Auto. So even nowadays, I'm still like kind of like on the fence because I definitely played it so much that I was just like, this is all I have in my
Oh
head.
man, yeah, I've had that. That's happened. Not in Grand Theft Auto, but I've had games where I'm like, you know, I was mentioning Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I was playing so much of it.
Oh
and
man,
then,
you went on top of a gargoyle, huh?
Oh, so you followed me around.
Yeah.
No, I was walking. I don't know where I was. I was just like in the street and I saw security cameras and I'm like, man, I should just take these things out. Just take these out with a batarang. And I was like, wait a minute, that's the game. No.
Exactly. No, I remember, I mean, I don't think my parents didn't realize that they had bought this thing for me. You know, I think if they had realized it, they would be like, no, we're not buying this.
Yeah.
But I remember when my dad first saw it, and he's like, is that what you're playing? Is that it? You know? You guys are losing your mind. You're not studying, huh? Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're a parent and you see your kid doing this, it's pretty shocking. It shocks the conscience. It shocks the conscience, but it was the big hubbub back in the day. Like everyone was talking about, you know, this new drug that kids are doing. You know, it's called Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, it's quite the change though. Like parenting back then was like a parents being like, "Yo, no, you cannot play this."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, like I see my kids playing, and I'm like, "Why didn't you hit that guy in the head with a hook? What's wrong with you? You should have killed him. Go get that hooker. Get your energy back. Let's go, son."
You're teaching them right.
Listen,
it's a hard knock life out there.
Listen,
you know,
this
Gotta
is
get
how
those
they
life
gotta learn.
skills.
they have to know how to get their life up.
Life lessons. Hashtag parent of the year.
Life lessons. Anthony's gonna be a parent of the year.
I'm rooting for myself.
Oh God, we're gonna get so many letters from this episode.
I hope I don't get you guys canceled.
I see the end now, Anthony. I see the end. Anyways, so that we don't have to lose our standing even further, let's move up in the future. After this, we had several sequels, as you know. Vice City, that was set in Miami in the 80s, my favorite, probably Arnie's favorite as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, San Andreas, set in the West Coast, California, you had Las Vegas, LA, and San Francisco. All of them fantastic games. I kind of treat them as a trilogy.
Yeah.
GTA 3, San Andreas, and Vice City. And we were actually originally going to talk about all those 3 games, but we realized, man, there's so much to talk about this game. We just need an episode just for each particular game.
Yeah, I will say one thing we didn't talk about, but that I think also links these 3 games is the cover art for all these. 3 Vice City and San Andreas is so cool. As a kid, seeing this cover art, I was like, I need to play this. This looks really dope.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the original cover art that's become iconic, it was actually not supposed to be. It was actually supposed to be the cover art that they got in the European release, which is kind of blowing up and stuff like that. But because of September 11th, they were like, it's too fresh, and so they changed the cover art to this, grid, pattern with pictures, and that became iconic. That became, the cover art for Grand Theft Auto. But yeah, Vice City, San Andreas, they're kind of a trilogy, and then GTA 4. That's where we really started seeing GTA kind of change. Listen, I like GTA 4. I think that GTA 4 is a fantastic game, but I think it went too far down the line of trying to create realism, where these games were just meant to be comical, in nature, and it skewed too much to reality. Where I don't think that we saw a balance of that until GTA 5 came around. Where they were like, okay, guys, people play these games to have fun, and fun should be the first thing first and foremost.
Your cousin Nico isn't calling you to go bowling every 15 minutes.
God. Hey, cousin, how are you? You want to go bowling? Oh, yeah, I still get nightmares from that.
Haven't bowling since.
Yes. But listen, I mean, I think that... What am I saying? Listen.
Well, they can't watch.
Choice but
You're
to.
all listening. No, I mean, I think that after this game came out, all games had to change.
Yeah.
All games eventually had to adopt this kind of freedom, open-ended freedom. And you could see the DNA of GTA in the games that are coming out nowadays. I mean, this episode is being recorded just a few weeks after Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. And that's a Rockstar joint, but it's definitely very much influenced by what GTA 3 set forth. If GTA 3 hadn't come out, eventually something would have come out, but it would have taken some years. But even open world games are the main dominant genre nowadays. You have Horizon Zero Dawn, you have Spider-Man. All these games, they are tracing their lineage to this original. You can do whatever you want, and you go to a particular spot on the map, and you get a mission there. That hasn't changed.
If you've played GTA 3, you kind of know how to play every other open world game that's like this.
Essentially. And, it's funny because originally every game that was like that was called a GTA clone. And it's kind of like Doom, where every first-person shooter is called a Doom clone until it becomes a genre unto itself. But there were a lot of actual GTA clones back in the day. I mean, the most blatant one I would say is True Crime Streets of LA. That one was done by the Vigilante A people, and it was just kind of like a rip-off of a bunch of Kung Fu Hong Kong films, and it was interesting. It was interesting, but I don't think it was a good game.
Saints Row, we stuck.
That's the one
head.
that I was.
Saints Row was the most blatant, but Saints Row came in 2005.
Yeah, it was a 360 game.
Yeah, it was like a launch game on the 360, I think, or maybe
close to. It was
a few weeks from the launch.
Yeah,
but it was kind of like it was you saw the blueprint from Grand Theft Auto, but they just went haywire.
Well, they just completely copied it, and they just went crazy with it.
Which was what they needed to do.
That was the thing is Saints Row, I think, ruined Grand Theft Auto 4 for me. Because I played Grand Theft Auto 4 and I was like, oh, this is cool, this is okay. And then when I played Saints Row after that, I was like, this is what I want.
This is so much fun right here.
But I feel like the first Saints Row was a straight rip-off, whereas Saints Row 2, that's where we first started seeing Saints Row having its own voice of just this is all just wild and wacky.
The first Saints Row, I remember playing it, and it was just same controls as Grand Theft Auto. There was no difference. It was just same thing, missions, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, 2, and then 3, and then 4. Forget it. The last 4 was just out of its mind.
But every game back in the day had to have a Grand Theft Auto type, there were so many Jak and Daxter went from a platformer to an open world kind
Yeah,
of Grand Theft
yeah.
Auto, which was always weird.
It was weird because it became like this gritty world, right?
where it
just
wasn't like that, like gritty Disney, basically.
Yeah.
Which, it was as jarring in tone as you would expect it
It's
to
like
be.
Batman Begins.
But even The Simpsons
Simpson
had
Hit
a
and
GTA
Run.
clone.
Hit and
The
Run.
Simpsons
That
Hit
was
and
one of
Run.
my favorites.
It was one of your favorites?
Because it was just perfect. It was
Yeah.
The Simpsons. It was
And The Simpsons were still big back in the
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
And I had so much fun with that game.
Yeah.
I love
Because it was The Simpsons,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of like you know what it was. It was
Yeah.
GTA with The Simpsons, and that was good enough for me.
Yeah.
Same. I love that game.
No, but even some games, like, for example, Driver, you know, which, as you said, like, you
Oh,
expected
yeah.
Grand Theft Auto, like, it was like Driver.
Originally, that was
Well, Driver 3 had to adapt, or Drive 3er.
Drive
you know?
how do you? It's like there's something about Mary, like Brett Favre.
That title, man. Yeah, like Driver, like eventually was characterized as a GTA clone, just
Yeah.
because we've been here before, but now GTA did this and it did this better, and so just because you can get out of the car now, you're a GTA clone.
yeah.
It's crazy to me too because Rockstar always they just manage to set that bar high in the next release of
Yeah.
whatever they do. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you
No one could compete.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
these guys. So you got all these games that are coming out between their game releases, right?
Yeah.
But then they drop another GTA game or a Red Dead Redemption game, and it's like, damn.
Yeah, it's like
Wow.
you know that they're going to advance the medium
It's
with
like
every
it's
release.
such polished game.
It's an event.
Yeah,
It's an event. Like, look, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out 5 years ago. It's still on the top charts.
Yeah.
It's still selling like
There's still,
hotcakes.
yeah, you still like what? Like you're lucky if you catch the game for $40 on
Yeah,
sale
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
That's insane.
Because every game is just a cataclysmic event in the
Yeah.
game world.
And
But no, I mean, there were some good games, but even games like Mafia, which was in development even before,
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 3, and that was another game that I was following quite closely. They were labeled Grand Theft Auto clones. I mean, that was it. They came, they did it well, and everything else was just a copycat afterwards.
it's like the I compare that to when because like a lot of companies they freaked out and they wanted to make these open world games. Everything had to be open world.
Yeah.
It's similar to like when everything went 3D.
Yeah.
Like Mario 64 came out, bam, everybody was trying to make their platform as 3D. And
Yeah.
sometimes things aren't meant to be in 3D.
Yeah,
Sometimes games aren't meant to be open world. Like you can still make a great game. It doesn't have to be open world.
There's something to be said for a linear
Yeah,
experience.
exactly.
Like you definitely, especially as you get older, that you need all the time you can get.
Trust me, man. I know the feeling, bro.
Like you could have a linear 6-hour game. Like that's perfectly fine. But Grand Theft Auto made it so that almost every game had to be open world.
Yeah.
And because if you were a big blockbuster $60 game and you didn't offer open world, it's like you're not offering enough value for my for my
Exactly.
money. So, and let me ask you then, Arnie. I mean, do you think that change to open world has been positive, negative, a mixture of both?
I love the concept of the open world game. Now that everything is essentially open world to a degree, it's getting a little tiresome. But I think the thing that GTA did that made it so good was not just having an open world. I think it was just the freedom of it. Because now having an open world sort of seems like a chore. Like if I go outside and like there's 50 markers on my mini map, like I don't know, that doesn't make me feel like I have agency to do something myself. Like it's like, oh, I got this list of chores that I got to take care of, that they sort of
You feel
laid
like
out
you're ticking
for me.
off a checklist, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
when the trend was starting, like first Assassin's Creed, like like stuff like Prototype, I thought was really fun, like being a superhero in an open world. But nowadays, it's just like they're just trying to cram as much as they can into that space. And,
Yeah.
I think Breath of the Wild sort of does what I'm talking about, where it's like there's an open world and there's stuff to do in the open world, but it's not like every single meter of that open world is crammed with something,
And I think even Rockstar has realized that. I mean, with Red Dead Redemption 2, one of the things that they said they wanted to do is move away from that kind of checklist open world design and just make the world more believable. And you can actually play Red Dead Redemption 2. I haven't played it because I don't have the $60. But you could actually play it without a HUD, without a heads-up display, and just kind of go with what they
See
tell
what
you
happens.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really something that a game like Breath of the Wild has brought back. I think The Witcher tried that a little bit, but it didn't go far enough. But it's something that we're kind of getting back to basics, because kind of like the Ubisoft style of open world has really kind of perverted it in a way, and it's just made it this kind of drudge to get through. And, you know, if you like Ubisoft, that's perfectly fine. I'm not, you know, criticizing their games. But to me, I just can't take those types of open worlds anymore, because they feel like they're just bloat. You know, it feels like filler. You know, and it's like, I don't feel like I really have agency in this world, as you said, Arnie. I guess quickfire. Anthony, what's your favorite GTA clone?
Saints Row.
Saints Row?
Yeah.
What about you, Arnie?
It's Saints Row.
Saints Row?
It's gotta be Saints Row. It's so fun.
I'm gonna say the Getaway.
Okay.
Getaway? Yeah.
Yeah, well, kind of. There weren't that many good ones. That's just
yeah.
There weren't that many good ones. Let's say, I guess, you know, as parting thoughts, let me ask you: has GTA 3 aged well, Anthony?
I haven't played it in a while. I was actually going to ask you how did you feel with the controls when you were playing it yesterday?
The controls feel great. The controls feel pretty good. I mean, it's very responsive. But like I said, the auto aim is absolutely dreadful.
There's stuff like that. Like, there's parts of it that probably we've just experienced so much better since.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you though, what's crazy is that how these GTA games are on an iPhone or just a mobile phone now. Yeah. Like, it's crazy to me that these games are just on a mobile device as big as they are.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, because you could basically have the whole game inside your pocket.
I actually did start playing that a little bit yesterday because I was just curious. And I'm just like, man, this game still looks good. Like,
I still think it... I mean, I think it holds up, but I wonder how much of that is tainted by my nostalgia for it, because I played so much of it.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard for
if
me
you give this to a kid nowadays, they're probably going to find some fun in it.
But
they're probably going to be like, all right, I'm going to go back to playing GTA 5.
Yeah, my kids will just be like,
just
like that sometimes.
Where's the airplane? Like,
where's
the speedboat? You know?
Like, why can't I do this?
Why can't I swim?
I got to unlock what to get where? No, not about that life.
What do you think, Arnie?
I feel kind of awkward answering this question, because I think, like, in the ways that matter to me, like being able to have the freedom to do all that stuff and like just driving around and having rampages, I think it holds up. As far as like the story and the auto aim and like the mechanics, the things that in a regular game would be important to have aged well, probably not.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I mean, I ended up playing it last night for 3 hours, so go figure.
Yeah.
But that's the amazing part of it. That like you could just pick it up, like you said, Arnie. Like the story, the missions, that stuff.
Yeah, but even then, I was doing the missions yesterday, and I was fine with it. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see kind of their writing and how it's evolved over time. Yeah. But again, I'm looking at it from a retrospective view, not necessarily as someone coming into it brand new. Yeah. But I don't know, I would recommend that people play it. It's not like I'm telling you to go back to GTA 1.
Yeah.
That was certainly
that was the thing too, is like the writing in those games was very different, like especially from what I was playing, because I was playing a lot of RPGs and stuff, and so that's very scripted, very like proper, sort of melodramatic stuff. But GTA 3 was just like it's like three guys in a room like talking like, yo, what's up?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I don't think, even if there are some aspects of it that have not aged well, that they hadn't even aged well when it came out.
Yeah.
Like the auto aim, I remember having it be an issue back in the day, and people would criticize it. Mm-hmm. I still think that it's just such a revolutionary game. It literally, games were not the same after that came out. Like you could say that about very few games: Mario 64, Super Mario Brothers, GTA 3, maybe Minecraft? No, I don't think even Minecraft, honestly. Just very few games like that. Yeah. And it's absolutely revolutionary. So, this is a game that its importance cannot be overstated.
Yeah, I think what it did for Rockstar.
Yeah.
I mean, what it did for them to just be able... I mean, you talk about a company now that could just take their time.
They could spend 5 years not releasing anything, and they'll be like, listen, don't worry, you're going to continue to make money for 5 years after that.
I mean, studios don't have that luxury anymore.
No, they don't have that freedom.
And I don't even know if let's say if Rockstar came out with their first game today, I don't think they would have the same freedom and luxury they experience
not at all.
now.
Yeah.
They basically have a blank check now. They can do whatever they want. They could take as much money as they want. They could do whatever. I mean, it's only recently that we've seen kind of a reassessment of Rockstar, due to the, labor issues and stuff like that, the long work hours and the overtime and crunch. But for a long time, Rockstar could do no wrong. It's just like, listen, they're Rockstar. They're rock stars. Just let them be rock stars. But yeah, so parting thoughts on GTA 3, Arnie?
I think it's a shame that GTA 3 will probably not be remembered as well as it should be for what it did, because Rockstar has been so good with its sequels that they've sort of improved and overshadowed GTA 3. But I think, it deserves to be recognized as, like, the one that started it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, I think that wraps it up for us. We've gone over 2 hours now, so
wow. All right.
it's been a super awesome fun time. Say that 3 times fast. So as I said, I'm Ozzy. You can find me at Shadow of the Collector on Instagram. But we're the Region Free Gamers. We're on Instagram, where you can find Arnie doing his thing. Just make sure to visit us. He's always there. I think he lives there. I don't think he has a home, actually. I think he gets his Wi-Fi from, like, Starbucks or something. So definitely visit us there. We're also on Twitter. I don't know how Twitter works, so I'll leave that to Arnie. We release on every platform of your choice. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes. We're on Google Podcasts. All those platforms that you usually listen to. If you like what you hear, make sure to, leave us a review. Anthony, tell us where we can find you. Plug whatever you want,
Yes,
your
this is my
stand-up,
moment.
this is your moment to shine.
Yes.
Plug the Bronx, whatever.
You can find me in the Bronx.
Post it up in the corner.
Usually in Yankee Stadium.
Yo, it was a good year for me in Yankee Stadium, man. I had some good tickets, man.
Yeah.
My girlfriend was, I'm going to drag this on, but my girlfriend was going to leave her job, and I said, don't leave your job. They were giving her these great tickets. I'm like, no, you can't leave.
Exactly.
No, but you can find me on Instagram. I'm usually on Instagram, Polybits, and I'm on Twitter. I'm like Ozzy right now. I'm like, I have Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but
Supposed
it's
to
there.
do something.
Yeah, or Facebook. Just look me up. I'm around.
And Anthony is a super, nice guy, guys. So, don't be afraid to reach out to him, Tell him that, his unsealing videos, are awesome.
Yes, please tell me that.
Please tell him that. Tell him that his dance moves are very stylish. So
I work it.
Yeah, work it. Where can we find you, Arnie?
Instagram, welcome to the game. But I'm usually, as Ozzy said, on the Region Free Gamers page, at Region Free Gamers. We're also on Twitter, at Region Free Gamer. And, Ozzy said it best, iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. So feel free to take a listen.
You can also find our other fellow co-hosts that weren't joining us today. Paul, because he's hunting squirrels that he's going to cook later today. Masa, I don't know. He's doing some Finnish stuff. So,
hey, whatever. He's finishing up something.
Finishing. You can find Masa at MasaJarvinen09, and you can find Paul at Pauls_Game Room.
Yep.
So make sure to subscribe to them, give them a follow, talk to them. They don't bite.
Yeah, cool people, cool people.
Yeah, we're pretty. We stay humble.
Yeah,
but stay hungry.
Humble and loyal.
As the number one podcast hosted
number
by
one
Hispanic in Germany.
Speak English.
Podcast in Germany.
We like to stay humble.
We're signing out.
Number one humble podcast.
Number one humble.
Add that to the list.
All right, guys, it's been a pleasure. Don't go out. Don't and beat up any hookers, please. We don't endorse beating up hookers on this podcast.
Unless they deserve it.
Damn it, Anthony.
I'm sorry. No, okay. Don't beat up hookers. I'm sorry. Don't beat up hookers.
Don't beat up hookers, please. All right, guys. Signing out.
All right.
Peace.
See you.
Are you bored with man's best friend?
Sorry, Fido, we're gonna have to drown you.
Why not try man's first cousin? At PetsOvernight.com, we've got every primate in stock, from spider monkeys to gorillas. You'll love your new best friend.
Mommy, Jim bit me.
Oh yeah, then you just bite him back then, okay, honey?
PetsOvernight.com, delivering little bundles of love in a box directly to your door.